That clock says 7, so we'll call the meeting to order. It might be a minute early. Can you take roll call, please, Wendy?
Patrick Kelly.
Here.
Rebecca Boland. Here. Sandra Flowers.
Present.
Joema Gaines.
Present.
Robert Leary.
Here.
Thomas Phelan.
Here.
Dr. Charles Shoemaker.
Here.
All present.
Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
1.4, moment of silence. Unfortunately, the last month's been a particularly terrible month. We've lost a lot of community members, dear friends, family members. So I will start. This will take a little while. Theodore Teddy Gomes Oliveira, Jr. passed away on Monday, August 27, 2012 in Newport at the young age of 17. Born on July 6, 1995 in Newport, he was the son of Theodore G. Oliveira, Sr. of Maine, and Sloan J. Macy of Pawtucket, and later adopted by Deborah A. Macy Green of Newport. Teddy grew up in Newport and attended Cranston Calvert Elementary School, Thompson Middle School, and currently was a student at Rogers High School. He worked at the Pier Restaurant where he enjoyed the work and meeting new people. He was known to all as Teddy and was one of the most popular boys in school, known for his quick wit, sincere kindness, and ability to make others feel welcome in his presence. Teddy was described by his teachers as respectful, sincere, lovable, charismatic, humorous, and charming. Teddy loved to skateboard and enjoyed skateboarding to and from school with vigor and a smile on his face each time he made the long trip. He will be missed sorely by his students and faculty at Rogers High School. Besides his parents, Teddy is survived by his grandparents, Edward Macy of Newport and Doreen Oliveira Williams, and her husband Ron of Middletown, his siblings Steve Harris and Joseph Harris of Pawtucket, Tanya Jones of Providence, Joshua Macy, and Thomas Green of Newport, as well as his nephews and nieces Leon Sampson of Newport, Jawan Green of Providence, Natalia Harris and Devontae Harris of Pawtucket, and many aunts, uncles, and cousins. He was grandson of the late Joseph Oliveira and Barbara Carter Macy, and a great-grandson of the late Maria Rose Graham. Ariel Rose Connerton, who passed away on Saturday, September 8, 2012. She was a daughter of Betty Rolando Harrison and Barry Crowley, both of Newport. Mrs. Connerton was raised in Newport and graduated from Rogers High School in 1997. An accomplished gymnast, she worked at as a gymnastics instructor and coach at YMCA Middletown for 15 years. She was beloved by her students and fellow coaches who praised her dedication and commitment to the young people of Newport County. Some of her favorite moments were those spent with her family at Gooseberry Beach and Hazards Beach. Mrs. Connerton is survived by her husband of 13 years, Christopher M. Connerton of Newport, her 3 children, Lily, Isabella, and Christopher, who attend Newport Public Schools, her brother Eric Crowley of West Warwick, her sister Heather Crowley, Paris, Kittery, Maine, her nephew, Ochiel McDonald, Julia Hanson, her many aunts, uncles, her in-laws, William and Rachel Connerton of Newport, and Granny and Pa, her maternal grandparents, Fred and Olive Orlando. Mrs. Connerton was the cousin of Thompson Middle School Principal Jamie Crowley. John F. Smith, who passed away on Saturday, August 11, 2012. He was the son of William M. and Elizabeth Martin Smith of Newport. Mr. Smith graduated from De La Salle Academy in 1952, Providence College in 1958, and Bridgewater State College in 1962. He was an Army veteran and past member of Wanamatonemy Golf Club and Country Club. He worked at the Newport School Department for over 30 years as an English and social studies teacher and guidance counselor at Thompson Junior High School, school counselor at the Newport Area Career and Technical Center, and director of guidance at Rogers High School before his retirement in 1988. Mr. Smith is survived by his wife of 54 years, Joan, his children, Sheila Sim of San Antonio, Texas, Catherine T. Almeida of Bristol, Rhode Island, Christine M. Seidner of Mundelein, Illinois, Anne Marie Martin of Newport, Rhode Island, Michael J. Smith of Middletown, Rhode Island, and Peter T. Smith of Middletown, Rhode Island, as well as 9 grandchildren. Michael F. Crowley, who passed away on Tuesday, August 21st, 2012. He was the oldest son of deceased Michael F. Crowley Sr. and Elizabeth Thornton Crowley of Newport. Born in Newport and residing in Middletown, Mr. Crowley was a graduate of De La Salle Academy and Boston College, where he studied history and also played football. After college, he joined the Peace Corps and taught English for 2 years in Bitlis, Turkey. He returned from Turkey to pursue a master's degree in Middle Eastern History at Boston College. In 1968, he married Judy Whitty Crowley. Following the wedding, they joined the Peace Corps and left to teach English in the deserts of Libya. They returned to Middletown to continue their careers in education. Mr. Crowley taught for 34 years, became department head, and after retiring, joined the Middletown School Committee. Mr. Crowley is survived by his wife of 44 years, Judy, and his 5 sons, Michael F. Crowley III of Rentham, Mass., and his wife Heather, Jamie M. Crowley of Newport, principal of Thompson Middle School, and his wife Melissa, Devin P. Crowley of Singapore and his wife Becky, Sean P. Crowley of Alexandria, Virginia, and his wife Elena, and Brendan T. Crowley of Arlington, Virginia, his wife Liz. 12 grandchildren, his brothers and sisters, Joan Kelly of Newport, Peter Crowley of Newport, Barry Crowley of Newport, Sheila Hayes of Newport, Betsy Graber of Newport, Colleen Wrinkle of Middletown, and Kathleen Fletcher of Warwick. Mr. Crowley was also the older brother and deceased Representative Paul Crowley of Newport. And Florence C. Cardoni, who passed away at her home in Mountainside, New Jersey on Monday, August 6, 2012. Mrs. Cardoni was the wife of late Horace Russ Cardoni and daughter of Salvatore and Claire D'Arizena. She graduated from Marywood University in 1939 and devoted her life to the caring of her 6 children. She and her husband were founding members of Our Lady of Lourdes, RC Church in Mountainside, New Jersey, and she was an active member of the Rosary and Altar Society, the Home School Association, and the Foothill Club, Meals on Wheels, and many other volunteer organizations. Mrs. Cardoni is survived by her 6 children, Mary Claire and her husband Ben Cardoni, Ann Cardoni, Louise Cardoni of Newport, who is the district's para-educator at Cranston Calvert School, Robert and his wife Mary Pat, Joan and his wife Karen, and John and his wife Fiona, 6 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren. A moment of silence, please. Thank you. It's a lot of losses to the community to take recognition for. Next is public comment. Do we have any public comment? Thank you, Wendy. Resolutions and certificates. Do we have any? School's just started. And student council update from Gabrielle Hermes.
Thank you.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
So for the biking report, this past month, basically, school started last Wednesday for students at Rogers High School. We are all getting used to our new classes, schedules, and teachers. NWEA testing begins tomorrow, as well as school pictures. Clubs such as Student Council are starting this week, and there's an open house Thursday for parents and faculty and staff. As for sports, they're taking off quickly as students get back into the swing of things. On Friday, girls soccer won 8-0 over Davies. Girls tennis improved to 2-0 against St. Ray's. Girls volleyball played well against Mount Pleasant, but were defeated in a close match. And Rogers had a tough defeat against Portsmouth Friday night in football, but they're fired up to play at home this Friday night. And at this time, I would like to take a moment to remember my fellow classmate, Teddy Oliveira. Today there was a memorial service for Theodore Teddy Oliveira at Memorial Funeral Home. Friends and family gathered to support one another in this tragic time. His death was a loss to the community, the senior class, and Rogers High School. He may be gone, but he'll never be forgotten.
Just one question. Mm-hmm. What's the sentiment about the extra 15 minutes in the day?
It's certainly an adjustment for people that have been here at the school, like myself, because like 1:45 was always that happy time to at school. But we're sure it'll pay off in the end, because it does make a use of the time for learning.
I got a lot of comments on my first day walking around about that from the students.
And there is just a lot of time getting to and from class, starting class, closing class. So it provides more education time. Is really the whole point.
45 hours a year.
Yeah.
Great.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Gabrielle? Thank you. You don't know if you didn't know, you don't have to stay.
Oh, okay.
Unless you're welcome to stay.
All right. Well, thank you. I have a lot of homework to do already, so thank you.
Yep. Next is the consent agenda, approval of minutes, personnel actions, and requests for home instruction. Dr. Shoemaker?
Mr. Jim?
I'm sorry. Dr. Shoemaker.
I just wanted to pull the minutes of August 14th.
Okay, so we'll pull the minutes of August 14th. Mr. Leary?
I'd like to pull 5.2 for the teachers, the hiring of the teachers is one of the most important things that we do, so we have individual vote on those. I believe it's 2. And also I want to make a comment on the para-eds, which I can do generically.
Okay, so
And
motion.
5.3, I'd like to make a comment on home instruction.
Okay, so let's move everything individually in that case. Move approval of minutes with the exception of, Dr. Shoemaker, which one were they? August
14th.
14th, with the exception of August 14th.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all opposed? Motion passes 7-0. August 14th, school committee meeting minutes.
I'm concerned about, on page 7 of the minutes, item 6.3, approval of modification to the school committee staff attendance policy number 4720 to include maintenance of reliable and audible daily attendance records. I've chosen to review this because this appears to be a modification of a policy, and I thought it would go to the policy committee for review and we would be voting on it again, but over the weekend I was surprised when teachers came up to me and said, "Why did you impose this?" And I was sort of surprised because I thought it was coming back as a recommendation from the policy committee, but I'm just curious as to why this did not go to the policy committee.
The policy committee, and any subcommittee for that matter, serves as an advisory committee. Certainly any school committee member can put anything on the agenda that they want per our policy manual. So there are some things that, in fact, bypass the policy committee if committee members want them to be on the agenda. So this was, I find that one. An action item, 6.1. Did you say page 7?
Page 7 of the second minutes.
6.3.
6.3, right.
6.3.
Develop a formal policy.
Right.
What's that?
So this was just an extra sentence to an existing policy.
Right.
Right.
Jim?
Yes.
In the interest of transparency, I had voted against that particular motion because I felt that for a couple of reasons, and one of the points, and I think this might be what Dr. Shoemaker's alluding to, is that particular issue was not really, sufficient time was not given to the policy subcommittee to look at it for the ramifications. I realized it was just as extra words of reliable and auditable daily attendance records, but I think we should have had a chance, I say we because I'm on that subcommittee, we should have had a chance to vet it. And,
So that, I mean, the motion, with all due respect, the motion's
Oh,
been
yeah,
made
it-
and
it
passed.
That's what I was going to say. That's I'm a little
it
confused.
no, it carried, but
Yeah.
I just think that this,
A little confusing.
So it
What's the
may
one
have
you
future
wanted?
meeting,
Yeah.
if somebody wants to modify that
Yeah,
policy,
what's-
they can try to do that again, I guess.
Modify the wording, I guess. You could
Yeah,
really-
modify
Yeah,
the
wording.
wording of that policy.
We've already passed the motion.
Right.
oh, that's already been done, but
Yeah.
presumably it could be,
I don't get-
modification could be
I
modified.
don't get the point.
So I hope that clears up that question.
Well, I would just hope in the future that this be clarified when we do change policies or add new policies, that I think the standard procedure is to go through the policy book, the policy committee, but if we want to bypass it, then an explanation be put in the minutes as to why we're bypassing the policy committee.
Yeah, I think that can be asked by any school committee member and would be entered into the minutes as a result. Ms. Bowen?
Yeah, I believe that this policy, I mean, we added the words auditable and reliable, but and then it goes to administration to interpret that, and so, I know.
You know, how was I going to interpret
Right, I know, so
auditable
I'm
and
just saying, so
reliable,
there's
Mrs.
something-
Boland?
No, I know. So I'm
Time
just saying
clock or
there's
swipe
something-
card or
Right, so-
sign-in, so
So it just was a
I didn't
little
have
bit-
much of a
Right, I'm just saying that's, we did pass that, and I'm responsible for that, but it was,
Okay, just wanted to,
You may be able to log in on your computer when you walk into your classroom and record times that way. So that's not our issue, the
Right,
mechanism. we
that's
use.
correct, it's not an issue of discussion
Yeah.
either.
Yeah, right.
This is a.
Yeah, that's
This is
right.
looking at the
We're talking about the
minutes.
minutes.
Yeah, we shouldn't be talking about that.
Right.
Perhaps it will be revisited.
Okay, item 5.2, personnel actions. Mr. Leary wanted to
Yep.
pull that.
I just wanted to pull, sorry, my homework here, just a comment first of all on the paraeducators. And I always bring these up that we had 39 applicants for paraeducators, 7 were interviewed. 7 had BAs and 3 had master's degrees. This is what we've come to. I always say this now, just to prove a point to nice people. We had a job 2 years ago, and everybody sitting at this table knows that. And we had a job for a 5th grade teacher at Thompson that had 455 applications. This is what the economy's like, is what jobs like out there. So you have people here, 7 of them with bachelor's degrees, and 3 of them with master's degrees, applying for a job as a paraeducator. This is what this comes down to. So it's interesting, that's why I wanted to make a comment, showing kind of what's come to it now. So I don't, and then the teacher actually is not pulled for separate votes, if you don't mind. There's a .5
Which document?
0.5 teacher at Thompson and a kindergarten teacher. I believe just a separate vote.
Is this still the 14th you're talking about?
No, that's not- no, not-
Mr. Kelly, I did want to point out as a note of clarification, we had hoped to have a math teacher on the agenda this evening. However, the screening committee looked at the candidates, interviewed, I think, one, and was not going to recommend anyone to my level. So we're taking a look at what our options are. I believe we have someone there now who has a math background but is certified in Massachusetts, but not in Rhode Island. So we're going to take a look at whatever options we have to get a competent math teacher in there at this point in time.
Yeah, because the obvious concern is educational, and
Right.
not having one now
Right.
at the beginning of school. Those
Right.
kids unfortunately are falling behind each day. They don't have a competent
Yeah,
math.
that's why we were fortunate enough at least to get a math certified person, but albeit Massachusetts. So at least the person knows mathematics. So.
And that's a full-time substitute at this point?
Yes,
So there's one teacher there all the time right now? Okay.
that's correct. Yeah. It's the best we could do, but I think the screenings committee decided it just wasn't worth moving any candidate forward.
Okay.
So,
Ms. Leary?
yes, we have 2 teachers to vote on, and I'd just like a comment on the stipend advisory positions, if we could, too, I get that, you know?
Okay, so why don't you make the motions as you would
Right, we'll do
like
one
them
at a time, let's do
made.
the teachers.
Yep.
So let's do the Thompson, there's a .5 teacher. Someone will make a motion to approve, we name the name, whatever, or no?
No.
No, I don't know why we can't, but, so I'm, position,
They're in the public
.5 teacher.
record.
Yeah.
They're in the public record, why not? So go
Okay,
ahead.
Make the motion, everyone make the motion to
Yeah.
approve it? All I want basically is individual votes on teachers. I think it's an important thing that we do. It shouldn't just be like passed through as carte blanche thing. That's all. I mean, I'm not against anything here.
Yep, okay. So you make the motion for the,
.5 Thompson Middle School special educator.
Second.
move and second, all approved?
Oh, one
Aye.
second, comment, comment.
No comment?
Yeah, just one quick comment. I'm not against it. My only problem is, again, when you negotiate contracts, it's always interesting that the little things get thrown out. And this is a .5 teacher who will get full-time benefits. So if you work .5 in Newport, .1 in Newport, .2 in Newport, you get full 100% benefits. I think it's something that should be negotiated, look at least getting half-time benefits. But it is what it is, and it's going on. So I will vote for it.
You bring up a good point, though, in terms of the sunk cost of benefits and only having half-time of the employee.
We pay full cost and they get full benefits.
Okay, moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Was there another one you wanted to move?
Yep, there's one more. It's a kindergarten teacher because of 218 kindergarten kids we have.
213.
213,
Five of them
thank you,
are
right.
out of district, but that's enough.
8 and 3 of them have glasses on, I guess.
That's enough. And, well, we can talk about that.
And again, how many, again, there's 86 applicants for that, just a kindergarten teacher, at one job, you know?
And that's a more restrictive certification because they have
Right.
to have early childhood.
Exactly, yep. So there's 86 people applying for that job. So we're talking about moving, applying for that too.
Okay.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion on that one? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
No.
We'll move the rest of the package, or?
Just one more generic comment, then move it all back up. The stipends and advisories are in the packet. I'd just like to ask if anybody in the committee knows or the superintendent knows, I know how much we paid last year, how much money this is costing us. If not, not putting anybody on the spot. I can tell you last year it cost us $180,000 for stipend positions. I don't know what's costing us this year. So we have these stipend positions, it's a big amount of money when it comes out in the end, for all of them. But it is what it is. And just wanted to comment, that's all.
Probably may have to go find that information for you.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
I can, you want it?
So it's done deal. It is what it is,
Yeah, I
it's a
mean,
lot of money.
Yeah.
Okay. The motion to approve the rest of the
So moved.
transfers and.
Second.
Just one question. All of these are built into our budget current?
They are.
Okay.
They are.
That's just my question. All right, moved and second. Any other questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Request for home instruction. I think Mr. Leary
Yeah,
wanted
just
to
have
pull
one
this.
comment, yeah, thank you. If you want to move it a second, it's fine.
Yep. There's a motion to approve the request for home
So
instruction.
moved.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Leary?
Yep, just a quick comment. I just want to know if we could, I asked this last year, I don't remember the number, but we already have, I think, 7 last month, I forgot what it was, and 9 this month. So we already got 16 kids this year for home instruction, being homeschooled. I'm just curious, we run a total every month, where we are.
Yes, the
What-
reason I haven't given you a total is because I'm still waiting for pending home instruction continuation.
No problem.
So.
I think
have
last
a
year's
block
number-
I'm still waiting on.
Do you remember what last year's number was, the total last year?
40-something?
40, yeah, 47, I was gonna say, I thought it was 47, but I don't remember. We had 47 kids being homeschooled last year in Newport.
Right.
It's a lot of kids.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. We're on to item 6, action items. 6.1 is one that I had asked on the agenda. As you know, Mary Ann Carroll was our chief negotiator for both Council 94 and TAN contracts. In reviewing the invoices that we received in August, it raised a couple of questions for the July 13th and July 30th based on the timeline of the hearing for arbitration and the results of arbitration. So I sent Mary Ann 2 emails asking that we be provided that. Dr. Ambrosi sent another email they weren't responded to. I asked Neil Galvin if we were entitled to the work products. He said, in fact, we were, and corresponded with Mary Ann. She said, I will be happy to provide them as long as it's a majority vote of the school committee because I don't work for any one individual of them. So really, this is just a matter of her taking a couple of emails from the 13th and a couple from the 30th, sorting them from her email basket and printing them out, which should take her all of 10 or 15 minutes. We have a motion to approve request for work products from Mary Ann Carroll.
So moved.
Moved and seconded? Moved and seconded, discussion?
Yeah, why do we want this?
When I look at the timeline, so July 13th in particular, we had already approved the binding arbitration agreement. TAN Council had already signed that, for example, so I'm not sure what work was being done at that point. Certainly that should not have been modifying any parameters that were already approved. And then when I look at June 30th, that was when the preliminary decision was already released, so I'm not sure why we're spending over $1,000 to negotiate a decision from an arbitrator, which I would expect it to just be a document. So I'd like to see what we're actually paying for. Moved and seconded. Any other discussions? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? The motion passes 5-2. Mrs. Gaines and Dr. Flowers opposed. Next motion, this is a policy change, first reading. We talked about wanting to contribute 1% to our capital improvement plan. I offered last meeting to create a first draft writing of that. This has not been gone through the policy committee. I did send it to them. I think they met today. I don't know if they took this one into consideration. But it's fairly simple. I will read it. The language that's added to fiscal management for the budget is Newport School Committee recognizes that it has responsibility of properly maintaining properties that are under their control. In recognition of this, an amount of not less than 1% of the annual operating budget shall be allocated to the Capital Projects Fund budget line item each year. In the event that said allocation is not expended in the budget year, the balance shall be contributed to school department facility fund and used to pay for future school facility capital improvements. Do I have a motion to approve that amendment?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, discussion?
Where does it come in that we'd like to have this vetted by the policy committee?
This is the first reading, so they certainly have an opportunity before the second reading to review and comment on it. I did send it to them for their meeting today, but I guess they didn't have time to take it up.
May I address that?
Yes.
We
Mrs.
had a
Gibbons.
very brief meeting today because we wanted to attend Teddy Oliveira's funeral. We did schedule another meeting. Sandra can address that later, but the general procedure is that after the first reading, the language is sent to legal counsel to make sure we have stated it correctly and that there's nothing wrong as far as the language is concerned. So that's what the policy committee will supplement.
Okay, so we have a motion and seconded on the first reading. Any other discussions on this item?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to say thank you for bringing this up. I know I've been a stickler about this, and we first lost on a 4-3 vote and came back and won on a 5-2 vote. I think we should never, ever, less than 1% of our budget, improve our schools. We should always keep it going. There's enough roof at Rogers to last a lifetime to fix it up, a section at a time. So I should never, ever not go below as far as I'm concerned. So I'm glad it's in the policy.
No, I will point out during our facilities tour, before the school year started, there are literally dozens of windows at Rogers that are insulated pane, that the barrier is broken, that have condensation in them. There is a significant amount of rust on the outside of the auditorium, fascia board, things like that. So there certainly are things that need to be done that may cost significant money that we should not be putting off until they're disasters. Any other discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 7-0. That's the first reading, so hopefully the
We'll send it over.
policy committee can take a look at it before the second reading, which will be our next school committee
Yep.
meeting. Number 6.3, creation of a subcommittee to evaluate options to address potential Pell School over-enrollment. As you know, over the last 5 or 6 years, we've learned that demographic estimates are exactly that, estimates, and shouldn't be used as very accurate planning tools. We were able to add 2 rooms to the Pell School, which is a good thing, so that we now have 43 classrooms available. Based on this year's enrollment, we would have needed 45 or 46, depending on how the kids shake out in the classroom assignment. Next year, if all of those kids move forward and we get another large enrollment, 200 kids, we could need 47 or 48 classrooms. So at this point in time, we don't really know what we need. We could need 0 classrooms or 5 extra classrooms in the coming years. So the idea behind this was simply to create a small subcommittee, 2 members of the school committee, 2 administrators, and parents of young children that would be affected by this, maybe a total of 9 people. Get together and talk about the scenarios of if it's 1 classroom, 2 classrooms, 3, 4, or 5, what options are there. I've heard a lot of conversations in the community about options that people have considered, I think Dr. Ambrosi points out, if you only needed 2, putting the special needs pre-K at the high school would be a fantastic thing to do even educationally. But we're going to have to spend some money to renovate that wing a little bit, so you need to decide on that early enough. If you needed 3 or 4, people have talked about ideas as running a 4th grade academy at Cogshell School or Triplet School, or creating a magnet school for a smaller number of 4th grade classes at the middle school at Thompson. Other people have talked about leaving the South End school open to eliminate busing and overcrowding issues, which is kind of a tough one to deal with, but should be looked at. Other people have talked about inviting a charter school to operate within the city limits at one of our surplus buildings. I think there are lots of options depending on how the scenario plays out, and I think what it will help, as much as for next year, is help the school committee when they have to figure out what properties you retain after the new school opens. Because I don't know how you're going to decide that without some educational analysis and some parental input of what happens if the enrollment population continues the trend it is, which is to be much higher than we expected it to be when we first created the design for Pell School. don't know if there's any other discussion on that. Dr. Flowers?
Yeah, just listening to what you've been saying now, and I know we've talked about this before, I said, I think first, it's good to get input from the public, and I think we have to be very clear whenever we say that this is just discussion, because too often, I don't care what the issue is, and I think we're all guilty of this, we forget the word "I think" sometimes, and all of a sudden it becomes a plan. I think it's very interesting now that we have all of this data coming in about these huge numbers of kiddies coming into the kindergarten and the other classes. When I first got onto the school committee, and even in this past few years, some of the projections of some of my colleagues were that we're going to have practically no one in the schools. The numbers were going down and down and down, and did we really need another school? Third, I know we have to keep our promises to the people of Newport, the citizens, the parents, the people who voted for the Pell School bond, and those also whom we told that their youngsters at Thompson, they were going to have 6th, 7th, and 8th grade youngsters there. The 5th grade was still elementary, and they were going to be kept separate because there was a real issue about having the younger kids there at the middle school. And if we try to force in 4th grade, I'm not saying it could not be done, but I think we have to really look at what we as a group have promised the people of Newport. So before we start to juggle around where the youngsters are going to be, apart from perhaps that the special needs pre-K down over here at Rogers, if there is room that is not being utilized, and if that could work, fine. But I still say, we look at these projections of numbers, we know that a good-sized number of youngsters are here because their parents are military, for the War College, they're temporary, so it's that fluid population back and forth. We have to have enough room, but I think first and foremost, we owe it to the people of Newport to keep, to the best of our ability, the promises that we made.
Thank you. Any other comments? Mrs. Gaines?
I don't doubt that we will have to talk about alternatives at some point. But my question is, why are we doing this now? I think if we wait until after the first of the year, we'll have a better handle on the mobility of those kindergartners. If those, I think 29 or almost 30 are attributed to military families, then those kids aren't moving up to 2nd to 1st grade. We need to analyze more the data on where these kids are coming from and the tenure that they are going to be in Newport. I think it's premature now. Some of these things are a little bit premature.
As I said, the purpose of this is to look at enrollment scenarios, which we obviously can't predict. We can look at this year's numbers. We have no idea what's coming next year. All we know is they're much higher than anybody's told us they would be in the future. So this group is simply going to look at options, come up with the recommendations for different scenarios, and the school committee can use that as an informed input to that decision process in the future. Dr. Inclusion.
As we had said before, and I think it was a stroke of genius that we added the 2 additional classrooms, but it would be my hope that we would maintain K through 4 at the new site, and not open another school and not move kids around, with the exception of the preschool. At the worst case scenario, you could move the music class from the classroom into the regular teaching environment, and that would be 2 more classrooms. I really strongly believe that, this was a hiccup, but I wouldn't want to scare people by saying that there are all sorts of other different options at this point in time, because I think that those options are probably more onerous than moving the preschool to the high school, and for 1 or 2 years having the music, and I'm sorry, Joey, but having the music classrooms as regular classrooms and having the music in the classroom. So, I mean, those are the types of things that I'm thinking about, and I understand that there are some other discussions that I didn't hear about.
Any other comments from students, Dr. Shoemaker?
I'm not going to comment about the timing. I mean, I think it's a little premature, but I think it's a worthwhile exercise because sooner or later, when these current elementary schools are emptied, we'll have to make a decision about surplusing them. And I think it'd be good to have a good inventory of what's in those schools and whether they're, I mean, the fact that the school has a name on it doesn't necessarily mean it can be occupied. There may be some bad roofs, there may be other things. So it wouldn't be bad to do this inventory. I personally don't want to be on that committee because it's going to be a lot of time and a lot of ifs. I think if you wait a little bit longer, it may not be so iffy and be more realistic. But I do think it's a good idea to do the study. I'm not saying when.
Ms. Bowling?
You know, I mean, even this weekend, out socially, I heard more than one person bring up the fact that, you know, there's already talk that there's not going to be enough space, and then you try to explain, and all the explaining in the world, you know, there's the perception out there of people's reality that somehow we've blown this, you know, and the school committee in terms of planning, really.
I think that's unfair to the school committee.
But it is, but I mean, it's something that the sooner I think we start talking about it and have a conversation and let people know that we're really working on making sure that, you know, we come up with the best plan possible to make sure that, you know, and in your music room idea, it might be just a great one. So, but just to look at a couple different scenarios of what might happen. So I'm going to back Mr. Kelly on this.
Mr. Phelan?
Mr. Kelly, we're going to be looking at the surplus schools that we have now, or we will have, the 4 schools, and see if we do keep one, which one, if we ever need something, would we keep a school? Which school would be best to keep?
Well, I think that would certainly come up if you run into a scenario that says you're 5 classrooms short. You know, 2 or 3 might not matter. You probably could fit them into the high school and the Pell school. But if you run into a situation where all of a sudden there's 200 kids, 190 kids in each grade level, then you're probably in a situation where you're going to need 5 extra classrooms. So you're going to need a different building.
So if we at least figure 3 schools that we get rid of automatically, and then the 4th could be done in the future once we see how things pan out.
Right. And the ones that probably are in the best condition basis, last time we looked at probably Triplet and Coggeshall right now in terms of physical condition of the place.
But, you know, something like
we should
that,
look at
that would be, you know, at least we have that an idea of what's going on. Because we also have the adult ed. How do we handle that? Is that coming back or is that staying out of the system? You know,
right.
You know, all those things have to be thought out.
Right. Okay. Any other discussions? So to have a motion and a second. This will be a small subcommittee. Not going to take as long as Dr. Shoemaker thinks, but it's certainly not going to be the 37 people that we had to figure out the options for the Pell School. So it's probably on the order of 9 people that we would solicit from the parent list, I would guess, for our other policy issues.
Yeah, we'd have to do the...
So it's been moved and seconded. We've had discussion. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes 5-2.
Excuse me, who made the motion, who seconded? I didn't get that.
Becky moved it, Tom seconded it.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to explain my thought.
Yes.
I think it's a good idea to study this. My concern is, why now? Why not just wait and do this in January when you have more data and it's more reliable?
Perhaps this won't be completed by January.
I don't think it will be.
Okay, so the motion's been made and accepted and passed.
And what was the vote?
The vote was 5-2. Mrs. Gaines and Dr. Flower was against. The next motion, 6.4, approved motion to identify all school department financial accounts in order to past year credit and debit, particularly healthcare contributions, food service, property rentals, gate receipts. So these are all kind of the oddball revenue streams that I guess I'm not real sure we've ever seen a whole accounting of. And maybe it's overambitious to say audit the past year credits and debits, but at least I think we should know what they are and what their balances are. Much sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and as I said, this is certainly a worthwhile activity, but I don't want Ms. Tracy to go running and screaming out of the office here. Finally have someone that I can rely on, and she's trying to get things in order in terms of food service and busing. So I just ask to wait a bit on this. As I said, good idea. Now we have somebody who can actually do it.
Perhaps rather than taking the action, if we can just have the identification of the accounts and balances for next month, and then we can talk about whether I'm hoping that's the easy part, right? Yeah.
Yep.
And then we can decide if there's any reason to actually audit them.
So are you changing the motion? Are you changing the motion, or?
Well, I'm going to recommend that we pull the motion.
Okay.
Anybody okay with pulling that motion?
Yes.
So we won't act on that one. Next one, 6.5, an RFQ for Pell Furniture. Actually, this to be on the agenda for a couple of reasons. I think anybody who's had training in project management knows that the first thing you need to do is get rid of the uncertainties in cost and schedule. Right now, we have a budget that has about $1.1 million in contingency funds out of our whole budget, $433,000 allocated for technology, and $433 additional thousand allocated to furniture, fixtures. What we don't know right now is what those things are going to cost. So what we're trying to motivate is finding out what they're going to cost. Issuing an RFP and receiving the bids doesn't cost the district any money until you actually award a bid. And Dr. Ambrosi has developed in our information package both the initial specification of furniture, which probably needs to be further reviewed and commented on, as well as a timeline for doing that, developing the RFP, reviewing the RFP, and putting it out to bid the 1st of January. So that's really what I was looking for, was that timeline.
Good.
So not to go out to bid tomorrow, but to have that timeline, because if we don't get these out to bid in January, we're going to be backed up
absolutely.
for the summertime getting the equipment
Absolutely.
and building the thing.
You know, we don't do this for a living, but I was told by the architects, well, we have to find the color scheme first before we pick the furniture out. So, and I guess they're coming to the building committee with the interior color scheme.
And the other thing too about going out to bid in January, when people sell you the furniture, they don't want to hold on to it. So you got to have somewhere to put it when the order comes in. And we won't be ready for that until June, July, right? So January is the right time to do this.
The reason I asked for this on the agenda item is I wanted to make sure we actually were doing all the pre-work to get there, because it's not as though you could start in January.
Correct. And say, whoops, right.
You got to go out January.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, can we hear from Mr. Farrar on this? Let's,
yeah, but you have to use the microphone.
I think you probably have a copy of the schedule that was put together by the FF&E furniture consultant.
Right.
It's a very reasonable schedule. Starts basically in mid-September and runs out through putting it out to bid. Then you have a period to reconcile the bids. So as far as a schedule goes, this is a very good schedule, very good outline, allows a lot of back and forth time, dialogue between the school committee and the user groups. So it's a very good schedule.
So we likely would have several meetings associated with this along this timeline to make sure
Exactly. There's a lot of, he's got a lot of input time in here. Again, meeting with the user groups, subcommittees, and ultimately coming back to the school committee. So this schedule allows a good, healthy process.
Two comments. One is I want to make sure, going through what, somebody had put down as what we thought we wanted for the cafeteria, I just want to make sure that we get the nutrition advisory group through that, because there were some things, that we're looking at a different kind of a table.
When he comes in the next time, we'll make sure that representatives from the group are there.
Okay, my next question is, I
think there were.
just want to make sure that this is in the process. So you put out an RFQ for a chair, but there's a lot of things about a chair. There's an elementary school teacher is going to want to know if the kid can rock on it, So are these chairs going to be at some point brought to the school?
Right.
So
Here's a scenario that they're going to bring in samples. I talked with the consultant. They'll bring in samples to have people look at and see whether or not they're appropriate, and then they'll bid same or equivalent. You know, so you're not going to get
We're not getting anything.
right. Yep.
All right, I just want to make sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the question though becomes when you go out to bid, you're going to get same or equivalent, so you just want to make sure your
Right.
specifications are pretty
Or tight.
on
Exactly.
what
Exactly. That's the issue.
What's designed.
Because when the teachers come in and they see the chairs that are delivered have to be substantially the same as the one, not Sam's Club chairs or something like that. It's going to be something from a quality firm.
So, any other discussion on this? Any questions, Mr. Brown?
Are you looking at this, as this proposal is setting the timeline?
Yes.
Yeah, look, I see it right here. That's what the proposal is.
So in fact, my suggestion was we don't need to act on issuing the RFQ at this point. We need to
Approve the
monitor this
Okay.
timeline and
All
participate
right,
in that
that's
process.
a little better about that.
So we'll probably have 2 or 3 meetings, it looks like, along that
Correct.
timeline.
Yeah,
Yep.
this is the
Make sure.
process that leads up to creating a very detailed and structured RFP.
Yep.
So you really need to go through this to have that in place.
Good. Right. So my suggestion would be to pull this action, the action will come later, and we'll start scheduling those dates for our reviews of furniture, fixture, equipment. And we'll get a much better idea of
How
we
much
have in
money
the
it's
budget.
actually going to, yeah.
Hopefully some competition on the bidding process will reduce the cost of it. Roger wants to talk about Thompson teaming models. Oh, actually, I'm going to ask that we pull the change order for the light shelves, since Jim is down,
Yeah.
6.8.
Okay?
If you don't mind, we'll move that up to 6.8. So this is approval for change order for light shelves. As you know, they were both an exterior shade and an interior shelf during the building committee process, especially with the double glazed glass and shading. You didn't necessarily need the exterior shade, but the interior light shelf would still serve a purpose of directing and bouncing light into the back of the class. So this is the cost to accept that ad alternate. I think the total ad alternate at one point was $193,000 for both pieces.
That's correct. Right.
78, right?
Yeah, this breaks it out into the interior light shelf is $58,009. And then we have this next change, which is associated with it, is to adjust the metal framing to support it. So that number there, the $18,221, I'd ask you to approve that based on a not to exceed cost of that value. We're still doing some negotiating on that, and I've got some back and forth with the structural engineer on it. So I'm hoping to drive that number down a little. But for the purpose of moving ahead, that right now is needed to support the light shelf.
Okay. So do I have any other questions, Mr. Farrar?
I'll move the motion
Second.
as outlined.
So move to approve change order number 17 and change order 21 not to exceed the price of $18,221. Moved and seconded. Any other questions? I'll just say that building's really coming together. It's nice to see that frame going together, starting to see
Yeah.
the back gym frame come up.
So what you see happening out there now is we've got it broken up into 3 buildings structurally. So you have building A, which is the west building, which is up right now. So that building is in pretty good shape. They're going to rack the steel, plumb it a little. By the end of the week, you'll see the metal framing going up. So that's the enclosure walls starting to take place, going around. Building B, which is the center building, which is the admin wing, that's arrived today. So that steel is starting to swing right now. So over the next couple of weeks, that's rising right up. Building C is the east wing, pre-K, K wing, and that's scheduled to start delivering on the 21st of September. So you will see a huge increase in manpower out on the site and activity, because that opens up now for all the other trades are coming in.
So you expect to see exterior walls and brickwork start going?
Yeah, you'll see the first thing you'll see is all the exterior metal framing, heavy gauge metal studs, which will be all your exterior walls. The masons will be following. Even on the inside of the building, some of the rough systems will start to go into place. Plumbing systems are going to start hanging from the structural steel, and there's going to be a tremendous amount of activity going on. So it's all good.
Yeah,
It's all
good
good.
to see the progress. Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Mr. Farrar, quick question, and I'm sure you can't answer now, but one of the things we just talked about, 6.3, was the creation of a subcommittee. One of the recommendations from the superintendent is that possibly the preschool be moved to another location. So you just said building C. Pre-K, I'm sorry, pre-K. So you just said that the pre-K and K section is section C, remember as you said?
That's correct.
So will those rooms be, could we use them as something else we had to? I mean, it's what I'm trying to think right now.
They are actually sized, I actually looked at that today, they are sized the same as the kindergarten.
Right.
It's,
It's not a problem. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
They're
I think
interchangeable.
I think
Yeah.
they're okay, they have bathrooms.
Yeah.
I think, you know,
Right.
Okay.
They're
That-
perfect for kindergarten, they could be used as jump.
Yeah, I just want to be
First,
clear now.
yeah,
If we get into this in
kindergarten,
January,
yeah.
find out that, you know, that we got to put a
No,
fourth-
no.
you got to put a fourth grade in there, we got to change everything around, maybe we should look at that now, you know.
Yeah, they're actually a little bit larger
They
than
are.
the upper school normal
Yeah.
classrooms
Yeah.
by maybe a little square.
Yeah, kindergarten classrooms, yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, so we moved and seconded. Do we vote? We didn't vote yet. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Mr. Kelly, could we move to 6.9? Lisa
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
has been here, and she came from Lincoln, my old neighborhood, actually, in Lincoln. Oh, well, sorry.
A little further.
Okay, so you're going back to Lincoln.
Yeah.
So
I apologize. We try to, our visitors from afar, we try to move them up. So this 6.9 with the approval of the committee will move forward. It's approval of the technology E-rate project. So these are reimbursements based, I think, on taxes people pay on their cell phones and telephones and internet and cable and things like that. If you come to.
Please.
So I have a couple questions though. And so right now we have a proposal in front of us to approve expenditure of $563,219.54 with a reimbursement to the district of $423,788.10 of that through this E-rate reimbursement project. So hopefully Lisa can explain to us her company's role in this and how this E-rate project reimbursement works and what the timelines are.
So we bid on your E-rate project. We're a vendor that's been doing E-rate for 15 years. But what happened was you went out to bid for these projects, we responded to the bid and won them. We applied for the E-rate award in 2009. Okay, so this is how long some of these awards take. And what happened was you were recently funded for this. So you were funded for year 2010 of E-rate. And it was really one of the only 2 years that funding went down to the poverty levels that you have, because you're not really a high poverty district. Even though you have 190% school, most of your schools are 80 or below. So there's 2 years that this has happened with E-rate in the last 15 years. It's gone down below 80%. So you were funded for 4 schools, and what you were funded for is cabling, switching, and wireless for the schools. So basically it's all for technology. It's the back-end equipment that kids need to be able to use wireless equipment, iPads, tablets, whatever you're going to use, right? So you're funded for that equipment. It goes from the wall out to the closet to the internet. And that's what we do. So we come in and actually install all the equipment, and then we actually bill the federal government for their portion of the equipment, and we only bill you for your portion.
right.
So it's a federally subsidized program.
So, these things, $88,640.88. So there was some very specific thing in some list. Where is that list of equipment we're buying?
We have given, the lists are actually,
I don't know why we don't have it in our information packet. because we're being asked to approve $500,000, albeit there's a great leverage happening. We don't really know what it is, and it's for cable switching and wireless and buildings we're going to abandon at the end.
Right, and so one of the things that we did was with Lee is we revisited what we were going to put in the school. So we actually cut down on the cable and put more of the switching and wireless infrastructure, because then you'll be able to reuse that equipment and you wouldn't be able to reuse cable. So we actually cut the budget from what you initially put in.
What's the timeline for requiring approval of this for us to actually act on this?
So this is E-rate money that was funded for the elementary schools in your district, and it would have to be used for that purpose.
So the timeline is...
It's soon. I mean, you were funded 8 months ago. So
Yeah,
right?
and Pat, it's actually late. If Lee Rabbit had been here and we had moved this along a little bit more quickly.
I mean, I'm a little confused because it's not reflected in our district technology plan either, this model. I'd like to really know what we're buying and how it fits into the Pell School before I vote on this at least. We needed sufficient time to review it before we act on it.
My concern...
Right.
Are we spending $500,000?
No.
No, we're saving 400. Well,
We're spending $563,219.54 of taxpayer money. Out of our local budget, we're going to spend $151,431.40. That other money is taxpayer money also.
Right.
All taxpayer money.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. And so it has to be used for the purpose of which it was intentioned, right? That's
Which are for schools that we're going to get rid of.
Right, and then the equipment.
So I would be comfortable if I saw the Pell technology plan, this equipment specification, and understood exactly how this fit into that we're going to move, or are we just going to buy boxes, install them, and throw them away?
Well, we had met before. Lisa and Lee and David Pereira from GGD Consultants had met before with regard to this, to make sure that
it was not a short-sighted plan.
That this wasn't a short-sighted plan, and
since the committee's being asked to approve this, I would expect the architecture diagram, the color coding of the components being bought for the current 4 schools, and where exactly they fit in that diagram for the Pell School, so we knew what we were buying.
The only other addition I would like is the transition cost.
Right.
I mean, we put something up in Underwood, somebody's going to have to dismantle it, carry it, and make sure it works.
right, and they had talked about that.
That's not covered by the E-rate program?
That is not covered by the E-rate program.
So moving equipment is not covered, right? It's only the E-rate equipment is used for the schools that was originally intended for. If you close those schools, the equipment goes with the kids. Those are the E-rate rules, but I've advised Jack, really, you should have an E-rate consultant
And
that does that. I'm a vendor.
I've spoken to an E-rate consultant who has confirmed that as long as we place this equipment in these 4 schools and the schools are closed, then the equipment can move over to the Pell School. And I understand that it's not, all of it is taxpayer money, but the local taxpayer is going to save probably about $400,000 net by doing this. And my only concern is, granted, this is late. I understand that, but I don't want to lose the window and lose the money.
Unfortunately, what we don't understand is how these components, because we don't have a list of those components. And
Yeah, the components are...
We don't actually know how they fit in right now.
I mean, I've given them a budget, so I didn't know that you didn't have a budget, but...
We have a budget, we don't have...
I've given them a list of the components that add up to the budget.
Along
right?
with our Pell School technology specification. So we see that, in fact, these are going to be useful at that school. We're not going to have time to review that in the Pell School technology, so that's not necessary.
Well, when does this window close? Because I'm concerned about losing the savings that we're going to acquire if we get this equipment now.
No savings if it's not useful technology.
It is useful. So if I could just answer a question first, maybe I could help. So we can certainly give you a breakdown by school because we have that. And when you apply to the federal government, you have to apply by model number, make, equipment, it's not, you just don't apply to them and say, oh, we want $500,000.
That's what I was expecting.
So, actually, we have very specific details on what you're getting. But it is 10 gig Cisco switching equipment with, clean access wireless. That's what you're getting, in a nutshell. But, Jack, I've given you the details of that, and the budgets are done. I sent that over to you. So I'm sure maybe the next meeting you can take a look at that.
It would be nice at the next meeting if the GG&D guys who are Pell School technology designers have that and look at it and say, yep, we're going to put that in this rack and this rack and this rack.
Did they do that?
Cost. Can GG&D do?
No, I think that they did that.
We did meet with Pell and look at the requirements of what you would need for Pell for switching and wireless technology. And yes, that was taken into consideration when we looked at the schools. But let me be clear, this money is for the elementary schools.
Correct. It goes to the elementary schools. That's
Well, when does this have to be done?
So
Adopted.
the intent of the grant is for the elementary schools as they exist.
Right.
The money does not transfer over to Pell.
Right.
So it would have to be done fairly soon. I would say within the next month.
Within the next month at the latest.
starting within the next month, or school committee approval within the next month?
School committee approval.
Okay.
within the next month.
Could we have a special meeting just to,
I think that
in
would
2
be-
weeks
I think that
or
would be
whatever
appropriate.
case it might take, so we can push it, move it along?
Mr.
I
Chairman.
I do this for a living. I'm very concerned that we buy the wrong stuff and it doesn't fit and all the transfer.
Right. We
and
met with the
interoperability
director
are
of
gonna be
technology,
big.
went over, and we met with Powell's from GGD. And so we did, and that's how we kind of came up with the final budget. That, I didn't come up
Right,
with
so
the
I would
final
like to
budget.
see that documentation
here.
before I approve expenditure personally of $560,000.
Mr. Chairman, I am definitely not going to support this as is right now. No question in my mind. I want to know, when we move this, who's responsible for moving it?
We would have people who would move
You
it.
could
We have
either
people moving,
have
so what
your
happens if they-
network people move it, or you
No,
would,
well, the cable, the switching,
you don't move the cable, right? You would only be able to move the switching, the wireless LAN controllers, and the wireless access points. You wouldn't be able to move cable,
so we
other
have
than
to,
patch cables.
all the switching and wireless stuff, we would have to move at our expense. And if anything goes wrong with it, it's probably no good. Might not say break it and doing it.
It would be under warranty if anything.
I mean, physically get damaged in the move.
I mean, you would want to pay, we do moves all the time, you'd want to pay someone to move it properly, Take down a switch, power it down correctly, wrap it, plug it back in, get it back up and powered and tested. Right.
Not the shoemaker.
The other concern I have is you're going from four separate schools now. It's like my home, you go into a router. Now when you move over to Pell, you're going to have one router. Who's going to program that so that you have an adequate router and it's programmed to go to all four?
There was no router included in this, there was just switching and wireless, and the wireless would work at the Pell and the switching would work at the Pell. There would be no difference. So there was no
This was
router?
planned so it would be able to be follow the children after it was installed here.
Mrs. Bullock?
Question, is the 150, like, is that in the budget now, or is
The 150 would have to come out of the 419 that is in the capital improvement, okay? Don't forget, this is part of the technology aspect of the building. If we don't do this, then the technology costs of the building will go up, my understanding, by approximately $400,000. That was my understanding of how this would work, having spoken with a consultant from GGD. So,
All right, so knowing that, so just to be clear, so approving this would reduce our overall contingency fund from $1.1 million by this $150,000, because the 419 is already wrapped into that number. We do have another $433,000 for technology also. We need to figure out the same RFP process exactly what that's going to be.
right, so that's why when we were talking about this and when I said, well, the technology isn't going to cost as much as we thought it would, that was because we believed that this was a viable option.
Mr. Good?
So are we going to I don't want to wait a month. That's going to be
So I would make a motion to defer action on this until we do have a special meeting that we can understand exactly what's being brought under this money, exactly what the Pell technology plan is, and how this fits into that. So I'm not sure it makes sense to buy this stuff, put it in the schools for 6 months, and then not be able to use it.
Excuse me.
Ms. Gaines?
I have to disagree with you there. We will be able to use it. We put it in the building now because that's the way we get the discount or the buyback. We have some vacations coming up among staff and school committee. What is the soonest we could have a special meeting on this?
School committee has no vacations.
Individuals.
I'm not gonna take a vacation.
That's nice with Charlie.
Yeah.
Individuals have
Yeah.
plans.
All right, so I'll move that we defer this to a date to be scheduled to review the Pell.
Give us the soonest
Oh, I hope so. The Pell technology plan, because we have to get to GG&D and figure out when they're available. There's a lot
Yeah,
of
we work
pieces
with,
to-
we do a lot of new building projects, so we work with that
Yeah.
group quite a bit,
Yeah.
so.
I'll move that we defer this to a date to be scheduled.
27th of September,
What day of the week is that?
Thursday.
If GG&D can have all the information available for us,
You can have a director of technology here, that would be really good.
that would be
Yeah.
good. That would be better.
From your mouth to God's ear.
27th of September.
27.
Ms. Bolton?
Do we also have an estimate of what it's gonna cost to move it? Like a
Yeah.
I think
We did estimate like.
$20,000.
We did estimate 20,000, but we would, it would be a time and materials project. We just estimated that.
Okay.
That
so-
was just a pen, just a dot that we threw. We didn't really,
So motion is to defer this to a special meeting to be scheduled for the 27th of September and include review of this equipment specification and the Pell School technology plan so that school committee understands how the two fit together.
okay.
Did I understand?
So that's a motion made, is it
Second.
seconded? Made and seconded. Any other discussion?
5 o'clock?
5 o'clock's good, right?
5 o'clock.
Generally good for Thursday?
Can you make it, Lisa? 5 o'clock the 27th? Sorry.
I was hoping the director of technology
Who made the
Yeah,
motion?
that would be good.
Yeah, the motion's been made.
Yeah, who made the motion?
I made the motion.
I seconded it.
Yep.
Okay, do we do a vote yet?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so hopefully we can close this out quickly because there is significant cost advantage to it. Okay. So we're back to 6.6 and 6.7, which were requests for proposals for studying the Thompson Middle School teaming arrangement. I guess we'll take that one first. Mr. Chairman?
Well, I don't see anything in here. I was hoping that we would at least get what other communities are doing that is working in the teaming situation. It looks like we're going to be developing a new teaming idea ourselves and not using what other communities are also doing.
I thought that's what the RFP would do. You go up to a consultant, you ask them to take a look at it. At least
They would give us what other communities are doing, pros and cons. And
that's what these things usually do.
okay, I just wanted to make sure because it didn't say it in here. And
I did have some concerns over the wording of it, and maybe these are a boilerplate for these kind of studies.
They
but
pretty much
it
are.
looks at service delivery models, recommends what capacity and things we have. But we specifically were interested in a less expensive delivery model when we passed that. I'm not sure we want somebody to come back and say, you need a lot more teachers.
Well, those are the kinds of things that they'll talk to the district about when they come in and talk with people, I believe. I mean, that's the way the consultants usually do.
and they'll give us samples of what other communities
Sure,
are doing.
yeah.
So we
Well,
have
that
an idea of
to
pros
me
and
would
cons.
be best. They talk about best practices, things of that
Sometimes you
nature.
don't have to develop a whole new idea.
Mr. Bowler?
Yeah, when I read that the firm has to have 5 years' experience, do we sometimes limit ourselves by, or is that a good practice to go with
5 years, you're not. Yeah.
Well, because sometimes maybe there's somebody new, new on the block that, and just need someone to give them a chance. You know, if everybody writes it, and I don't know, I've never really written an RFQ.
Any other questions? Dr. Flowers? Oh,
I
sorry,
asked this
Joanne.
last time about this particular issue and something else, and I'm probably going to get the same answer, but is there any guidance from the Brown Department of Education on this? Or would we get some recommended firms from them to approach?
You know, there,
I'm thinking in terms of, you know, we're cutting down expenses in a lot of other areas, and consultants, by their nature.
I don't know, this is,
Mrs. Gaines?
I still have some concern about this. I don't think we've given the middle school team, as we had agreed to in our contract, we haven't given this team a chance to sit down, to discuss, and maybe gather the same information that a consultant firm would. The principal seemed to think that they ought to have a chance to look at this before we bring in some outside consultant. And I'm not going to support the motion to do this. I think we have some experts in this work, and we need to give them some credit.
Dr. Shoemaker?
I'm sort of going to follow what Mrs. Gaines said. The last time we voted to go straight to a consultant without implementing the advisory committee as was described in our new contract with TAN. I voiced my objection to it, then found out, and we really have upset the middle school new principal, the principal of Thompson Middle School. He just feels he's been slighted. He's sort of an expert. He's been talking. We've consulted with him about clustering, and we just bypassed him. And to be quite frank with you, there's been teachers who are considering grieving this because we have a clause in our contract which says we're going to use the advisory committee, and we're bypassing him. It's for this reason, I think I hope we would table this motion in hopes that we can review what we've done, because I think we're headed for a grievance, and I hate to see us get at odds with our own staff.
Mr. Phelan?
We're still going to go to the committee and talk to them about what we have received from this information, and then we're going to come to some agreement in some form. But it's just that at least we have some idea of what's out there, what's going on, and what other people are doing.
And I would suggest that that committee should be formed post-haste and start thinking this through themselves also. Because at some point, this report will be given to them for evaluation. This report's not going to come to the school committee to vote on. It's going to go to them for evaluation and recommendation. But it needs to be done before the budget time next year, so you know where you are. Ms. Bowen?
And I think that sometimes, like, this is not saying we don't, you know, have faith in the middle school. Hopefully they're going to come to the middle school and say, this is what we've come up with. And I sometimes, like, you get kind of insular when you're working, you know, in a school district, in a state, and they do things one way. I think hopefully these consultants are going to be looking the way it's done all over the country and be able to come in and just give some ideas and then work with this committee to come up with what's going to work for Thompson Middle School. So.
Ms. Gaines?
My point is, we don't need consultants to tell us what's being done over the country. That's the kind of data that our staff can glean, and they can assess it, and if they think they need a consultant, then they can tell us, we need more help to get this done. I think we're putting the cart before the horse here. I think we need to give our staff the respect that they deserve and allow them to work this out.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I will be supporting this. And just to remind people in the committee that 2 years ago or less, we, as a committee, had to come up with grouping kids according to ability at Thompson, and that seems to be going fine right now. It wasn't part of the administration. It just told, here's how to do it and work on it. So I think we'll hire experts to come in and give us some ideas, and we're just going to see what they have. So I will definitely support this.
Thank you, Mr. Baird. Any other? Dr.
Just
Flowers?
on the flip side of that, I said before, we're constantly trying to cut, but now we hire a consultant, whoever it would be, a firm from out of the area. As Mr. Leary just said, we wanted things to be changed. They're grouping the youngsters by ability. Apparently it is working. May I continue? Thank you. And again, it was the work of the people right there in the trenches that is making it successful. I think that if they themselves, if the principal and the administration and the teachers, like I say, the people who are in the trenches, if they say, we do need some help, we would like some outside sources, but in this technological age, we can find out what's going on practically instantaneously. So I really cannot support this at this particular time.
My only suggestion would be to take the RFQ and perhaps add a completion date of end of January and February, so that you know the recommendations are going to come forward, be reviewed by the teacher committee at the middle school, and you have information in time for budgetary decisions. Really. So that's what my request would be, is to modify this to have a completion date, which isn't in there. I mean, perhaps you can do that through the approval of the board process.
You can do that. As I had indicated, I thought that maybe you gave the committee a couple months to work on it and see what they came up with first. If it wasn't satisfactory, then go out. But I understand the vote of the committee last time was not to do that. So, but we could extend this.
Well, I would want this RFP, whoever this ends up awarded to be done in time that their recommendations can be completely considered by the middle school teaming committee to be formed, and they're not put in a rush to respond to something that's given to them at the last week.
That's fine.
So is it reasonable to have a completion date of January 31st?
I mean, this is a committe activity.
I'm just not sure
think
how long a
so.
study of this educational study would take, if that's an adequate amount of time.
Doesn't sound adequate to me. What do you think? We have two assistant principals or commissions. In terms of studying and coming back with a recommendation or reforming the middle school?
I think that
It's 4 months enough time.
I think that Jamie should have a chance to make it work myself. That's my opinion. I agree with Jen that given the opportunity, I know Jamie's called several districts. He has connections all across the country. I would put it in his hands and the middle school's hands, and then as Jack said, if nothing satisfactory comes out of that, then don't worry.
Yeah, unfortunately, we'll be too far into the year and into the budgeting process. We won't have an option available potentially. Is there a motion on this? Motion to approve the RFP for Thompson Middle School Teaming Arrangement Consulting Services. Moved by Mr. Phelan, seconded.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. Leary. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 4-3. Second is similar, perhaps a little less controversial. This is a motion to approve an RFP to look at the alternative learning program, which is housed here in the Career Technical Center, to look at efficiencies in that delivery model. Any discussion on this, Ms. Gaines?
On this one, I'd like to see a change in the, what is it? I think we were talking about 9 to 12. I'd like to see that extended to grade 8.
I'm sorry, that was a typo. It should have been set. We have it at 7 sometimes.
Okay.
If youngsters, that's sorry, typo.
Okay, I was looking at the age appropriateness, because a lot of the kids who are in trouble are age appropriate.
It wasn't Wendy's
for
typo, it
ninth
was
grade.
mine. Sorry, Wendy, it wasn't your typo, it was mine.
Okay, so we will adjust this to read grades 7 through 12 as the grade span.
Right, that's correct.
And the other thing that concerns me is CO responses must be received on or before October 3rd. I don't think that's long enough. October 3rd will be here before you sneeze. I think if we extend it at least by a week.
Well, then you ought to do the other one the same time,
Well,
I would imagine.
I don't have anything to do with that.
Well, I mean, the committee ought to have it. Okay, here's the concept. The committee ought to have sort of both of these coming back at the same time. Thank you. But what do you mean, like November?
No, even if
October
you
10th
extend
is
it
what
by
it
a
says.
week, give it at least 4 weeks.
Fine.
Okay, so we'll modify the proposal submission and award to be October 10th, 2012 as per
And hopefully that gives everybody time enough to do this.
Mr. Chairman, do we contact companies like, Ms. Went did our last study for us?
Berkshire.
Berkshire, things like that?
We contact the usual suspects, hopefully.
Okay.
We'll see which ones of them want to do this.
Dr. Flowers.
Yeah, when you were introducing this particular point here, did I hear you say career and tech?
Well, it's housed in the career and
Housed in the
technical
career
building.
and tech, okay, that's what it is.
Not part of the career.
No, it just happens to be physical.
Any other questions or suggested modifications? Is there a motion to approve this with the modification to be grade span 7 through 12 and due date October 10th, 2012?
So moved.
Moved and seconded, Mrs.
Second.
Gaines and Mr. Phelan seconded. Any other discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion passes unanimously. I'd like to make one more motion on the one that we just passed to modify the due date from October 3rd to October 10th to give an additional week for responses. Yeah, so it'll be the same date. Moved and seconded. Any discussion on modifying that to be October 10th due date on the first one? No discussion, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? So we'll modify both to be October 10th as due dates?
Correct.
Thank you.
Who made that motion? That was
Mr. Phelan made the motion and Mrs. Gaines seconded it.
No,
Okay,
I didn't.
Mrs. Boland seconded it. Just the due date.
I'm not even voting on that.
Did you abstain from the vote?
Yes.
Okay, so the vote was 6-0, unless anybody else abstained.
no, 6-1-0.
6. Did you vote against?
I didn't vote
abstain.
on that.
She
I
voted
abstained.
Yeah.
It can't be 6-1-0.
But that's how I do it.
Oh,
Yeah.
goes 6.
Yeah, 6 means for,
Oh.
1 means abstain, 0 means against.
Sort of like Switzerland.
No, we don't abstain very often. Okay, that gets through all the action. Yep. Discussion items. I guess being the first week of school, this is kind of a normal issue to go through. I don't know other school committee members, but I probably received between 18 and 24 emails and or phone calls from parents concerned about being notified the week before school starts, not being able to get in touch with anybody at the school district to talk about how placement decisions were made, what the catchment areas are, why their kids were going to a certain school. And, I'm kind of curious what the general consensus was on how many calls were made, what responses were made. I am concerned when people, especially our newest customers, call the district and don't get good customer service.
Yeah, as I had indicated, one of the problems that we had with this is the registrar and the clerk left during the height of the season, Lee Rabbit and Bev Weaver, leaving Doreen shorthanded and having to do a lot of catch-up work on NWEA and all the new technology information. On the 20th, Marson moved over to help out, and Jay Booth came in to try and coordinate the assignments. Obviously, this will be the last time we will have to do this, and unfortunately, we did have complaints. Wendy, 12 of them got to my level. Wendy got 12 complaints, and we tried to deal with them as best we could.
I mean, it seemed to me in talking to people that the catchment area lines that have been previously defined seem to, and maybe it's because new people were doing it, they didn't realize where they were. They seem to be a little bit arbitrary in terms of
It was not
drawing lines on streets and where people were
I
placed.
was not happy with some of that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a standard protocol.
There is only one catchment
Lee,
area.
Lee Rabbit knew what the standard protocol was. So.
Right. Mrs. Boland?
Yeah, I've had a couple phone calls this week about parents concerned wanting to get onto the Aspen system, and our poor technology people are absolutely
Correct.
overwhelmed with getting kids input into
Right.
the system.
Yep.
So just throwing this out here, but when our people get like this, is it possible for us to call back somebody who's retired? We obviously have money in the budget because we don't have a technology director to get these people some help. I know Marston's working till 7 p.m. at night some nights, and I'm sure everybody's working like absolutely overtime. So why, can we do something? Because it's not appropriate then for a parent not to be able to get on Aspen either, and we don't want to dissuade. And over the summer, all of their everybody's passwords went bad. You have to reset them at the beginning of the year. So you got a lot of parents not understanding how to do this, and we haven't even been able to send out an email yet to explain this.
A certain amount of that is so technologically different that only Doreen can do that, as far as I know, and she's the person that does that. Unfortunately, Doreen was the only person who was doing the registration for a while, with the exception that we had times when we closed the registration office, they came over here, and Betsy did the registration. Did you do it? Betsy did the registration here. So I say again, it wasn't a perfect situation. It's the way it has been to some extent since I've been here. But it became a whole lot worse because we had a whole lot more kindergarten kids, and people couldn't get into the schools that they wanted to get into.
Is it possible to bring someone back to get those kids input?
Yeah, I guess the real question, for me at least, is so those parents need to have access to that information system. We encourage parents to be involved in
Right,
children's
absolutely.
education. And right now, they're blocked from that involvement, and so what I don't know is at what point in time are they going to answer the phone calls and tell the parents what their passwords are and get them logged in? Because if it's not next week, they should be bringing in extra help.
Yeah, again, I did not know that there was a problem with this up until, and I guess Jackie, who's been working with them, didn't know about it either. Jackie has been helpful in terms of dealing with some of the things that Lee used to do, and I was not aware that that parents weren't able to go on to Aspen yet, but we will certainly.
Why aren't you aware?
I don't know why I'm not aware. If Jackie isn't.
Is that stuff, isn't that what the clerks in the local schools do?
No.
The parents, or is it something?
It's always done at
At Central?
and I don't want to put any more stress on anyone in that office. Absolutely not. I mean, so if we don't have the people to do the job right now, I'd really like to add some help in the office and no more stress.
What the problem
My
with.
question is this. My question
Yeah,
is
they
this.
can't do it.
If people aren't getting on, and administration doesn't know that they aren't getting on, how can they address the problem? How is it you know that parents can't get into Aspen and they don't know?
Because they called the office.
They call the office and they're told, we're not dealing with parent phone calls.
What?
I don't
What?
really.
Which office?
Which office says that they're not dealing with parent phone calls?
Technology office. That
Should be
doesn't
the
have a director
individual
of
schools.
technology.
Okay.
This needs to get fixed, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll take care of it.
But let's
How
without
can you,
stress.
how can
Without
you fix
stressing
it?
everybody.
Without stressing.
Yeah.
You know.
Doreen is working 80 hours.
That's what I'm saying.
yeah.
That's my point here. is
Yeah.
that-
But
that we can't do this to our people.
we'll get. See, the problem again. I say the problem is, it's a very specific job that they have. Somebody just can't come in
somebody do the
and be this
inputting, maybe?
and be this. No,
You have to be trained.
no. That
She
it's.
doesn't have time to, I mean,
Just hope we had
It's a
somebody retired.
catch-22 situation.
Yeah.
But
She
Yeah.
needs help, but she doesn't have time to train folks. So you need help that already knows how to do it.
sometimes you have to stop and sharpen the saw a little bit to get the job done efficiently. I mean, I can't see telling parents, we have no idea when you're going to be able to get on and see your
No.
child.
That's unacceptable. That's unacceptable. I didn't hear about that until right
Maybe in our
now.
FYI package, you can inform us on Friday how this is getting resolved. But it just needs to get resolved, right?
Well, as I said again, first time I heard that parents weren't able to get on Aspen, and I think
Aspen provides.
When I go in every day to say, is there anything really that I can help you with? Is there an emergency? What do you need? I'll input data. Even offer myself, I'll input data. Can I do something?
Okay, we'll check into that.
Actually, it's an email, 48 hours to get back. I mean, that's really what it should take. They should prepare an email. That's what I did using Aspen as a parent. If, you can't log in, you send an email to Tech Alpha and they say 48 hours.
And which parent, you have a lot of parents?
Tell them that, the parents.
Right, it's an easy enough thing to pick up the phone and say, I'm sorry, you'll get on, we're working on it, but not to take any...
Well, they did. They said we are working on it.
Okay.
Not this weekend.
Well,
So, I mean,
okay, so...
it's just, it's
I
hard.
just thought
It's
that
really
that
hard.
someone
I just
was
don't want to cause
rude,
any
so...
more stress to these people that are
Well,
working
that-
overtime like this.
but
That's
that-
all.
but-
Yeah.
Information about.
Sven, do you have questions? No? Any other questions? Dr. Flowers?
No, just a question, okay, just to clarify. Aspen provides what information?
Ski lists.
Pardon me? Oh, no, listen.
Report cards are in Aspen, attendance is in Aspen, so
Yeah.
as a parent, you would log in, and if you want
Oh.
to see your students' grades or.
And of course, it's
their
early,
assignment
so,
or
yeah.
It's the parent portal, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the
Okay.
parent portal.
Well,
You
then,
go
yeah.
online, boom.
But if it's emergency
And-
things or whatever, email comes through, the listservs are working, because I know I get the
It's
newsletters
more
from...
for a parent to be able to keep track of their students, of their child's
Okay, well,
grades,
we only
et
been in school,
Okay, we'll
obviously, for a
check
short
on this.
while, Yeah, yeah. And sometimes a phone call is quicker than,
Yeah,
yeah.
I say again, didn't know this was an issue.
This is a problem that I relayed to the superintendent as soon as I got the phone call about the bus situation. The lack of courtesy that some of the staff at the bus company have needs to be addressed. They need to train their people to be more civil and learn how to read the list of where kids need to get off the bus. But every year, I know it happens every year, the first of the year, kids get off at the wrong stop. But letting a kindergartner off when there's not a responsible adult there is inexcusable.
To the custody of a stranger.
And-
Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
that has already been very specifically addressed.
And I know last year we had the same problem, or maybe it was 2 years ago, when this company came on board. And
It's
I'm
it's an-
just wondering if there's another company
There,
around
there,
that
there,
we
there
should be
is.
looking at.
Yeah,
This shouldn't
there
happen
is.
2 years in a row.
There is. And last year, if you can remember, last year was worse than this year.
I don't know.
Well, yeah, it was.
Yeah.
You remember?
It was Mrs. Gaines, it's time to have yearly reviews. I did not support this contract last time. We have a local Ocean, what it was called?
Ocean
Middletown-
State.
Ocean State, that's run by local people that is here. And I gave him a call this week, and I said, let me ask you a question. My only complaint from a parent was that they called and nobody answered. And I said, so if I call you at 3 or 4 or 5 o'clock, what happens? And he says, there's somebody there until all the buses are parked. He said, we answer that phone until all the buses are parked. And then the phone goes directly to somebody who has to call, whichever person may be that night to answer the phone. So all phone calls are answered. And I said, thank you very much. I don't understand why it's not happening when the parents call and nobody answers.
Well, we had problems from my office as well.
I guess I'm curious, and maybe it's for a next school committee meeting, if there are options to terminate this contract now because of these problems that started.
I would not suggest we terminate it mid-year, but certainly the next year out. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, but not, can't do it.
We don't want to go through this again.
No, this is the second year in a row, and I've been on the phone with parents from St. Philomena's and on the phone with the principal at St. Philomena's, and I mean, it's just, and I'm trying to work through some of these other complaints, but this past week, between a couple of hiccups and just unacceptable.
Mrs. Boland?
Well, I mean, this is just something to think about. It occurred to me as I read that article that, and this past year at the conference, I met the local regional head of First Student, and he said, if you ever have any problems, you just call me. And I'm thinking, he doesn't get this article. He may not even know we have a problem. So I'm thinking we need to take it, you know, really. I mean, is this guy gonna call and tell him, hey, by the way, you know, I don't answer the phone?
I lost two kids.
I lost 2 kids. So he said, if you ever have problems, call me. I have his business card. And I think he might
Their
be
corporate headquarters knows.
calling. They do.
Their corporate headquarters knows. They actually responded to Channel 10 with an email saying the district and First Student have a policy not to let a kindergarten youngster off without adult supervision. They actually apologized in writing.
Yeah, I'd just like to see what they do about the fact that the policy doesn't apply.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think it's a good idea next year out to, right?
Dr. Flowers, did you have a?
No. I have a question. Do you think they can come in front of us next month, maybe, with a...
Maybe they should think the guys, I don't know if I could.
Under the bus. Spend the time training their personnel.
Throw them under the bus, yeah. Well,
Teaching them how to be courteous, to be.
well, I think that's something that's lost in translation at a lot of different places. People need to be courteous to one another on the phone, and, you know, I always tell my staff, you know, if somebody's yelling and screaming at you, just put the phone down and let them continue to yell and scream, and when they're finished, pick the phone back up, but never hang up the phone on a parent.
Okay. Any other discussions
Yeah,
on?
just one other,
Yep.
I mean, besides, I'm assuming that after this discussion, that we are gonna require that somebody always be there to answer the phone. That's you know,
That's why I wanted to
at
come
the
in
bus
front of us.
company, right, A.
That's why I wanted to come in front of us.
And B, the second thing is that we just also need to tell them not to come early to a bus stop, because that is also a major problem. When you come 2 minutes or 3 minutes early, and you leave half the kids all.
I can't guarantee that one, Mrs.
No,
Boland.
but
I mean, I can
no,
ask
that's
on that one, but.
policy.
Yeah.
It's a policy.
It throws everyone off.
Information.
Yeah, we, last year, it was almost every day we had issues with the ALP and the buses coming early. And I'd call up, and then they'd be on time, and then a couple.
They're just,
I mean,
Not good.
your cell phone's very accurate. Just stop and stay there until it gets to the right time before you leave.
Right, it's easy, and then you just don't miss the way to school.
Okay.
Okay. I didn't think about the bus issue, but that's probably more important than some of the other issues.
It was brutal.
Item 7.2, discussion, review plan and responsibilities for corrective actions at Sullivan School. As we know, this is rated as a priority school, so the state RIDE has some involvement in this, and of course the district is taking some action. Just kind of want to review where we're headed, especially with respect to math, because math achievement seemed to be the
That was
factor
it.
that held us back quite a bit.
30-point drop in third grade. That's what did it to us. And we will be working with them sometime at the end of next week or the following week. We're going to be meeting with the representatives from RIDE.
Last week, at the end of the week, Maria, myself, and Amy Donnelly Roach met with a person from RIDE just to discuss where we needed to go, what that process was. RIDE has, the district first has to fill out and complete like a needs assessment, and then from that, the school fills one out themselves. That process then goes to RIDE for approval, and then after that, the interventions begin. Now, the interventions have nothing to do with the scores themselves, so that part has already been decided. However, we did, and we've already been identified as being a priority school, so those scores, those test scores, we already know that we have issues there. So what this plan focuses on are other things that we can do as a district and as a school to circumvent and intervene. So it could be, extending the school day. It could be offering more professional development. It could be any number of things that will directly affect how students do on testing and how students do in school, but is not related specifically to any one assessment. So that process RIDE has all the data from the schools, from the district, and so as we go through the process, it's an online process. They come, 2 people from RIDE will come down, and they help the district as we go through the process, and they will sit and help the school as they go through the process. They don't expect that you're going to sit down and take hours and hours and hours. The entire assessment, they said, should take 3 to 4 hours. It's basically a menu of options that you choose, some under leadership, some under content, some under other areas. So it's basically a big menu. They have all of the data that we've been reporting to RIDE over the course of several years, and they look at that, and they, based on what we choose, they sort of rate it. And as long as you can substantiate why you want to do one thing versus another, that's fine. So it's basically, they're providing the menu, they put the onus on us to choose what it is and what direction we want to go in.
I hate to be disrespectful of RIDE, but it sounds like a pretty bureaucratic response that doesn't really target the core problem, which is student achievement in math.
That's correct.
And I would much prefer to say, let's use some race to the top funds to get math coaches for all those teachers.
And
to
it's not,
give a lasting.
It's not the way they.
It's not like that, and they don't really give us money.
But we can do
Right.
that under our race to the top grants. We could ask for approval to bring math coaches into that school, bring it from the bottom to not the bottom.
They've given us, what, $55,000
well,
extra?
that's tied,
Title
and it's tied to Title I, so they really haven't given us any money.
I mean, it really
because
was-
we don't really have.
But I'm talking
Title
about
I
race to the
money.
top grants. There's some number on the order of $200,000 sitting on the table waiting for us to make proposals again, is my understanding, for race to the top funds.
And that has, most of the money from that is tied to the Common Core.
Yeah.
So it has to be used for that. I mean, it's not an intervention, it's Common
I would
Core.
instruct these students in the Common Core mathematics.
It's the development of the Common Core, I think.
It's implemented.
And it's called PD.
The BEP, is to implement the BEP, and when we have put proposals in, and turned down part of it, but again, it's tied to what we're putting for right now is teacher stipends and some, an evaluation ISP, an intermediate service provider to come help us with the teacher evaluation program. So there's very specific things. It's projects that they have up at RIDE. We can start
It
with
is.
teachers to learn about the IMS, the information management system. We can start with teachers to learn about interim assessments. We can do things that are tied into the initiatives.
To their initiatives.
Right.
To their initiatives.
Right. I'd rather help teachers and students, but that's
Well,
just
so,
me.
I mean, there
Yeah.
are some things that we have done
So
that are, we know that we care about the kids, we care about how well they do, we care about teachers and trying to put in their hands things that will be helpful to them. So the math interventionists are working there every day. So 5 days a week, they're working with every grade while still doing service to the other elementary schools, but in a smaller way.
I mean, we have 2 of those, and we have 200 kids or something.
Right, but,
The ratio is just not
within,
gonna work.
with the funds that we have, they are intervening, so they're spending part of the time as interventionists, and they're spending part of the time in classrooms to pull small groups. We also are working with the University of Rhode Island in kindergarten classes on an early intervention system for building vocabulary, which is a huge piece of the Common Core. And we are implementing Lexia in kindergarten and first grade. So I'm...
Dr. Shoemaker?
Yeah, my cynical background is reinforced by some recent articles about poverty and the need to get these kids ready in the preschool age. I don't think all this, what just bugs me is this intervention by RIDE to think that interventions at 3 and 4 or maybe the 7th grade is going to work. I think it's a pre-K situation that has got to be corrected, and they're not spending any money on the 0 to 3. They have all this money from the second grant to increase the standards of the teachers at Head Start and so on, but that basic issue of poverty and changing that isn't being addressed. My question to you, how are they going to know whether they've had improvement? These kids are going to go right into Pell next year, they're going to be merged. Are they going to follow those kids individually, or are we just going to say, well, it worked and we walk away from it?
Well, I mean, we can certainly follow students individually.
You are. I'm just wondering if RIDE is going to do it.
No.
No.
That's our job.
I think the exciting thing of Pell is when all the kids are at the same place at one grade level, we can really target the specialized instructional programs for the kids who are most in need, and I think that'll just be an exciting opportunity to have special ed, reading specialists and math interventionists at one place with all of the kids in need, whether or not they're kids from Sullivan or Cranston Calvert or Coggeshall or Underwood. We say Sullivan because Sullivan has our highest poverty rate, 87%, and Underwood has our lowest, 36%. So it's a district with some great swings in terms of poverty, and the correlation between poverty and test scores is substantial. As you know, Underwood was a leading school, and Sullivan is a priority school. That being said, we want to raise the bar for everybody, and I think with the Pell School and what we'll be able to do with the Pell School in terms of interesting curriculum and special focus will be great for all the kids.
I mean, the one thing that we're not cheering about it, but in talking to the teachers at Sullivan, we try to look at it like as an opportunity to look at the things that are really wrong. We're looking at attendance and really trying to research and find out ways that we can improve that. What can we do? What kinds of creative ways can we intervene with that, and some of the behaviors. So, as bad as it is, I think there's also opportunity and a cohesion among all of those teachers to really work together and try to create something that moving forward we can bring into Pell that's going to be better for all of our students. And the one thing it does do is focus us to really look at those issues, to pay attention to them and try to move forward and reconcile.
Mrs. Gaines?
Jim just mentioned something about it. Maybe it was you. He said something about attendance. Has there been any breakdown on the rate of attendance among the 4 schools?
I don't know. I know we did. I know we did better, by about 10% better. I think I gave something at the end of last year.
We looked at the truancy.
Yeah. Generally speaking, I mean, it made a difference. I mean, in terms of student days, I don't think we did anything with that, Joe. I'm not sure, but we can. Obviously, we can.
It would be interesting to see if attendance might have been one of the influences in Sullivan becoming a priority.
Now, one of the things that you need to know this year, Sullivan's poverty rate's going to go down because we have 4 kindergarten classrooms there, and those kindergarten classrooms are populated from all over the place. So that it won't impact on the test scores because the kindergartners don't take the test, but it will impact on the poverty rate of Sullivan. Just like Cranston Calvert went up because we didn't have enough room last year at Sullivan. A lot of the Sullivan kids ended up going to Cranston Calvert. Again, it will be very nice when there's one school.
Any other questions? Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Next item, 7.3, review of district technology plan and RIDE requirements. I know we're shorthanded since we've not been able to hire yet a director of technology. The hiring of a technology director?
No.
So here's my concerns with it right now is it's a little bit boilerplate in the context. It doesn't really talk about technology and education integration. So I'm not quite sure who's on the technology committee. I hope it's a lot of teachers, classroom teachers, talking about how this plan gets developed and what we're delivering each classroom. The committee's talked about Khan Academy, for example, as a marvelous tool for especially middle school math education to be dynamically tracking it. But it doesn't it's not mentioned, doesn't come out in here. And I was also hoping this would be more of a recommended investment budget than a constrained to the adopted budget plan. So that would inform the school committee for the next 3 years. If we're trying to go to one-to-one computing and we're going to buy a device for every child, how much is that going to cost?
That's
If we're
going to
go
cost.
to a cloud environment,
Yeah.
how much is that going to cost?
The next year out, that should cost a lot of money. So, again, there was a group. It was, I think, well attended. I was given minutes of the meetings. This was the report that was developed and submitted by Lee Rabbit based upon my understanding of the technology group. I know two people who, Jennifer Booth and Audrey Boisvert, who's very technology proficient. I don't know who else was on. But with the new technology director, hopefully this will be updated and improved and revised.
Yeah, and I think that would sort of be a first order of business, understand what we have, and then with the teachers, what technology I think would really make a difference in the classroom and what it's going to take to bring that in.
I agree, and again, but it seems like we're trying to find a green striped tiger again for this position.
Some of those folk from the studio 28 or 38 or whatever that was,
You're right.
aren't they looking for work?
Yeah, they if we were interested in gaming, we'd be all over that. But
That's pretty good.
we're casting a wider net. I'm afraid that we looked at some folks. I mean, the folks are expensive. They'll come for between they'll come for between 95 and 100. I mean,
You gotta have them, so you gotta pay for them.
Well, if the committee's willing to do that, I can get somebody relatively quickly. But these are like special ed directors. I mean, it's a niche market, and they can. I mean, I interviewed folks, but there was only one that I would consider, and that individual
We'll find a way
wouldn't
to
come
keep
for
Bobby
under
home.
95.
We'll
Pardon?
find a way to keep Bobby home that night, and you can hire a tech.
So again, I've gone out. I'm advertising again. 2-week window, and hopefully by the October school committee meeting, we will have someone. In the meantime, Dr. Naspo has done a very nice job helping out in something that she knew nothing about up until 3 weeks ago.
Oh, no, she's been a techie.
She has?
Yes.
Well, she's a closet techie then. So
hopefully we'll have an appointment to make.
Yes.
Maybe you do have to open up the budget window and we can decide on that.
Okay, that would be great.
They are
That really would be.
These people are highly qualified. There's
Yes.
lots of jobs out there for them. It's a competitive market.
Yeah. Yep. Okay.
$100,000, pay $100,000.
Okay.
Okay. Item 7.4, review of teacher evaluations for the just past school year and plans for the next school year. I think, as everybody knows, we went through this gradual implementation process, so all the teachers went through an evaluation process that took, I think, on the order of maybe 5 hours per employee on that. Around that.
And the administrators just went for 4-day sessions. I actually went for 2 days. I mean, at Ride Workshop, unbelievable that I stood 2 days of a Ride Workshop.
Well, I think it's a very high workload on the administrators in the building.
It is. Well, I don't want to get started. But truth to tell, everybody's treated the same. A first-year teacher is treated exactly the same as a teacher who's been here for 20 years, who's already proven himself or herself as an outstanding teacher. I don't even understand the way this works. It is very, very difficult to implement. It's very, very time-consuming. I've got to go. I have to go this year and go 3 full days, like into each school, and see how the principals are doing. They're going to love this. I mean, it's just one of those things. It's just not. It's very, very difficult to implement. And the concept is is that they can drill this down and make it so prescriptive that Pat and Bobby would go into the same building and come up with the same grade for the same teacher. And I find that very, very difficult to believe, because I think that there are differences in personalities that administrators take to the table, and I don't see how you can overcome that, but they're trying to. Believe me, they're trying to. They say, when this happens, this has to happen, and when that happens, that has to happen.
But it's good, because it's subjective. They're looking to be objective,
They are.
not subjective.
They are, and that's all great, but having evaluated teachers and administrators for a long, long time, usually what happens is that people look at the whole and not the donut. So somebody can get a great evaluation, wonderful, and you say one negative thing, and they're looking at the whole, not the donut, for the whole, for the entire evaluation. Same thing.
That's what's happening with the kids. I mean, you could have one benchmark that was not made, and it's a headline on the paper, but it's neglected all the good things that have happened.
So to answer your question, Mr. Kelly, we're trying to standardize the approach this coming year. This is the year that counts. But I say once again, it is my belief that no teacher will lose his or her certification by this process, because of the way the process works. You have to have 5 years of unsatisfactory evaluations at the same time your 5-year certification runs forward. Other than that, you're never going to lose your certification.
Okay, so can you just not do it and save all the time?
Yep,
Is the state-
might not be a bad idea, but we'd all be in trouble.
Is the state still planning to hire evaluators?
I don't know what they're doing.
And
They have
They were
ISPs.
going to hand them out, not hand them out, but assign them to different districts to assist in the process?
Like was retired.
That they train, like we have an evaluation on internet, intermediate service provider, came in today on our PDJ, and worked with our itinerants to develop specialized student learning objectives around the arts, PE, because they had difficulty last year coming up with things.
So they're training the evaluators.
And then we walk through Race to the Top funds, time of an evaluation ISP.
We didn't have much of a choice on that.
And that's what we did, part of that. And she's very helpful. She'll come to, we have a district evaluation committee. She will come to those meetings and help us with that. So she is helping throughout to do some of that. Some districts have hired evaluators.
Well, be very careful if we decide to hire one. Be very careful.
We have not decided to do that.
Okay, because I know one evaluator who was hired as an evaluator, they couldn't get a job in a couple of districts, people that I know.
We
So
decided not to do that.
I can imagine her evaluating anybody.
Dr. Flowers.
I think it's just interesting looking at this chart here that you had 174 teachers, but 555 final summative evaluations. That's a heck of a lot of work.
Those are points, those are point systems.
No, the sum of the final summative, yeah, but I'm just saying that
They
there
multiply
is...
3 points and 4 points, that's what I mean, the 555 means the points.
Oh,
Yeah.
Total
But
points.
but I'm saying,
No.
when you're looking at the amount of work that had to go into that,
The good news is when you have 2 teachers that are developing, everybody else is effective or highly effective.
Yeah, that's perhaps questionable on the first pass.
Again, that's why there was the 4-day training to try and standardize this approach. But you know, folks are educators. They always want to do well.
Okay, any other discussions on the teacher evaluation plan and the update this year? The next item, financial item, review of Council 94 extended benefit payout process, and we've, I think, broadened it to all the monies paid out for 2006 forward and the process used to determine them. And to be honest, I guess my concern is twofold. One is we're collecting monies from people, employees, for their future benefits, and we're required to deposit that in the trust of which the school board, school committee are the trustees. So instead, we seem to take perhaps a simpler path of the monies that were collected that year, using those to actually pay out any claims for people who withdrew from extended benefits and were owed the monies that they had deposited. And so we really haven't deposited monies right into the extended benefit trust and then paid out of those. So we seem to have not had that clear of an accounting process for how monies are going in and out of this trust fund.
In a timely fashion. I remember that I didn't even know about this, and it was built up with a substantial dollar amount, and then all of a sudden it was transferred over in one fell swoop. That's one of the things that Joan has been, she doesn't look happy. It's one of the things that Joan has been working on to try and find out when the money's swept in and what the interest payments will be for the people who have already withdrawn their money. And it will take a little bit of time, but people will get their interest payments as they're entitled to according to contract. Now it is a little different if we have to get involved in actually taking the money out of the trust fund, but I really do think we need to figure out whether or not the monies are deposited every month, every quarter. But there was a time, that was my understanding, that it wasn't deposited until the end of the year, and we held it. And it didn't make any sense because we weren't getting any interest on it. And if it didn't go to the Trust and Investment Commission, then they weren't getting any interest on it. So that's what we know now.
But, it seems to me that this is one of these adequate financial control questions of those monies collected in that P90 account should only go one way, from the employee's paycheck into that account into the trust. And if somebody says, I'm withdrawing from the trust, I'd like my 20 years worth of contributions reimbursed, that should come out of the trust to that individual. And a record should be kept of whose money went in and whose money went out, and everything is very, very clean.
Yeah.
Right now, I don't know, we really know whose money's in there anymore without reconstructing the whole thing to figure that out.
I think what has been done in the past is that whoever the payroll clerk is keeps a record, a running account of the money that has been contributed by every individual in this. And then based upon that dollar amount, they take that money out of the Fund 90 account, and that's how it's paid out.
From the trustees' perspective, I think people are asking to be reimbursed money they put into the trust.
Correct.
And they should go through a payout from the trust. It would make more sense. I don't think it makes sense to pay them out of monies collected from other people that year when, the OPEB law requires that money be deposited in the trust. I think we're kind of skirting the edge of what we're required to do. And it'd be much cleaner if you're getting paid out of the trust, the money, no kidding, comes out of that trust fund and is reviewed by the officers of the trust.
We would have to have a substantial change, and I'm not saying that's a bad idea. We'd have to have a substantial change in the way we do business. So I think that Laura and Joan and the members of this trust ought to meet. For those of you who remember, I had one heck of a time even finding out anything about the investment trust subcommittee maybe 5 years ago when I first found out that it was in existence. So I think what should happen is that the members of the school committee should meet with the investment trust subcommittee folks, because I know they meet periodically, and get a better understanding as to how the whole thing works.
Yep.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay.
So we can arrange for that meeting in the next 6 weeks or something.
Sure.
Like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions on that? Okay, next item, review of the LGC&D hiring process. As everybody knows, this was the company that came in and did an audit review of our business office operations, came up with a series of recommendations for that. And my concern, I think everybody's concern in the committee, is also always expenditure of public funds, and are we using appropriate processes. We're getting bids from multiple vendors before we authorize expenditure of funds. So for a variety of reasons, that didn't happen in this case. So I'm trying to figure out, is there a control that can be put in place to make sure that we in fact are getting multiple vendor bids, and when dollar amounts are going to be larger than our cap on small purchases, that we go out with official RFPs and don't just rush through the process of hiring somebody. So I don't know what kind of controls could be put in place to prevent this from happening.
This, I understand, but to me, this was a very unusual situation because the timelines were so tight. And I did reach out to try and get some consultants, Ralph Malafont, Jane Coria, some of the retired business folks, and I couldn't get anybody. And then at the last minute, I had talked with Laura Citron, who mentioned Susan Johnson. I met with Susan. We had agreed to a not-to-exceed price. Unfortunately, I thought we got something from her. She thought she sent something to us. It was never there. And then we didn't get the information that we thought was forthcoming from the city accountants. And to me, I still don't understand that. It certainly would have eliminated a major issue. So that's where we are.
Okay, I don't know if there's some purchase order process that happens or something that can, be a double check to make sure that multiple bids are available, or that things are not going to exceed our price for small purchase orders versus competitive RFPs. I'm not quite sure what in the process could, kind of stop the train for a minute and let's think about this more thoroughly.
Yeah, as I said, this was one of those things where I felt we were under a horrible timeline. I knew that we had substantial problems with the business office operation, and I needed to make sure that we didn't get another negative management comment on the audit.
Okay. I guess the answers will be more careful. There's always going to be emergencies, pressures that come up. Okay. Any other discussion on that? Item 7.7, Pell School Development Plan. Mr. Farrar did tell us kind of where we were construction-wise, but there are a number of items, obviously, that need some detailed work over the coming year, including the detailed educational programming, how the classrooms are used, how the math and the music and art rooms are used, the media center, the gym, the recreation facilities, et cetera. So that's going to. This is a much different building, so that's going to take, I think, a substantial amount of work to get it in place for the end of the school year, so everybody knows what it is going forward.
Right.
So I don't know who's responsible for that, but I would think the future school committee would be looking for updates on that.
Right.
Then there's the other thing of moving all the kids out, in and out, and looking at bus scheduling, looking at traffic patterns in the area, looking at safe paths to school for children who can either walk or bike, and trying to figure out are the traffic signal modifications that need to be made? Are there crossing guard issues? Are there one-way directions on the street? Does it perhaps make more sense for the buses to park in the parking lot and the parents to drop off curbside as opposed to the way it's currently arranged? Are there just some other things that can be thought through a little bit more? Because let's face it, 200 kids show up, 200 cars show up there in a 30-minute time frame. That's a lot of traffic.
Absolutely, and I think that we got an initial report by a traffic consultant, but I do remember that the Newport Police were very concerned about getting involved with this type of activity, and I know that we need to make sure that we have sufficient parking space for the staff. Again, parents come and pick their kids up. At this location, I would imagine and hope that most of the parents let their children take the bus, although after what happened last week. So at the end of the day, the buses will come from south to north, so there should be less of a problem. We'll have express buses in the southern end of town picking the kids up and going north. But again, this is an activity that's certainly something that needs to occur.
And this is one of this is a hiccup that could make this whole school look like
Right.
a
Oh,
disaster if it's
yeah.
not well
Oh,
planned. If it's well planned,
Yeah.
it could work fairly well.
Absolutely. Yes.
So at what point, Mr. Chairman, do we start talking about DTO educational programming?
I guess I would ask the superintendent what he thought would be a reasonable schedule to go through that process.
I would imagine we'd probably start that November 15th, December, to start talking about it. You know my thoughts on it, Mr. Leary. I mean, I haven't,
No, I
haven't been exactly shy on what I thought ought to happen.
I think we gotta get going. The same way, I know it's November, fine, but somebody just mentioned 200 cars. I don't think that's no, but if 200 cars show up, we got troubles.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but we don't, I mean, that I think we can, some of these things we can wait a little bit of time on.
Yeah.
Obviously, you want to have everything in place, you know, in time for the budget process, certainly in time for April, so you know exactly, you know, what you can tell parents they can expect in the new school.
Mrs. Gaines?
Don't we have a traffic department and a police
Right,
department?
yes.
We don't know anything about traffic.
I know that. What? Yes, I know.
We have people who do this.
Right, that's who we would rely on. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's engage them.
It's a good topic for liaison committee with the
But
city
we-
council to ask them to bring the
Right.
police department in to start looking in detail at this.
Yeah, and I again,
Put that down, right?
no one wants a hiccup for this. This is why I'm staying.
Right.
Let's be honest here, because I don't want the hiccup. So, you know, this is a really critical aspect of the opening of the school. So all of these other things are fully vetted. So when the school opens, you know, you're not going to have. And quite honestly, the week before school starts, we have to keep telling parents, let your children come on the bus the first day. Because
that's been going on for
yeah, nice, Tom.
40 years.
So
Yeah.
if they don't, then we're really in trouble.
Mrs. Boland?
Well, it actually was a topic at our last meeting, and it's going to continue to be a topic at the liaison meetings, because the parent, you know, we actually have a parent on there, Naomi Neville, who's very concerned because it took a long time to get those specialized, you know, stop things.
Yep.
And we got to make sure that they're put into sidewalks and ordered ahead of time. And so
Right.
I
Yep.
think, you know, because you can't just have the police without somebody working on you know, like knowing the educational part side of it, you know, to work with the police to figure out how to best do this. So, because it might, you know, I read the 54-page report last night. And,
Isn't that fun reading?
It was really fun reading, but
But
boy,
but
it's
at
very
the
detailed.
yeah, but at the end of the day, our own local folks will be weighing in on a lot of that stuff.
Right.
Dr. Flowers?
Yeah, a thought. This is just a thought. You know how, and I gather you still do toward the end of the year, you send home, you know, while we're sending home paper, indicate if your child is going to be coming, and then perhaps indicate, parents will have to know what that radius would be, whether they're going to be walking or riding, so that you can get at least a good number to say, yeah, we know these kids are going to be riding the bus from certain parts of town. I don't know if you take a compass and figure out how far away they would be, but you can, that's something that...
You can, yeah.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Within a certain radius, you're going to be walking, and then, just, you know, it would work that way.
Again, there's going to
Shouldn't
be
be a surprise,
there'll be a lot of work, a lot of planning that needs to be completed for a smooth opening. One of the things that we need to also realize is we're going to have all these old schools. Some of them, you know, we'll probably keep, but some of them we're going to get rid of, and we're going to move things out of there and move them someplace. So okay.
Any other questions on the traffic or educational programming? The other things are more construction oriented. Obviously, the building committee talks about a lot of things, but I thought these couple of things it's worth kind of bringing forward for the committee to consider, because if anything's going to change, decisions are going to have to be made. First is on the south side of the building, so that abuts our neighbors on Dudley Street, and there's a fence on the back of the property right now. Because of the elevation of this building, the grading plan for the building is to, well, the fence is currently located 8 to 10 feet inside of the property line. That is, for 50 or 60 years, we've allowed the neighbors to use 8 to 10 feet of city property. And they've used it well. They have gardens, they have sheds, they have rock walls, they have swimming pools, and they've maintained it for a very long time.
Yeah.
So now I think we have three options right now. The current plan, as I understand it, is to leave the fence essentially in the same place, but to have a 2-to-1 graded slope going out from the foundation of the building, meaning for every 2 feet out, it would drop 1 foot. It's a pretty steep slope. So right now, that would extend from the fence to 8 to 10 feet into that property line. So what those people would be looking at is what's currently level, relatively level ground, would be looking at a 4 to 5 foot high, 8 foot to 10 foot long slope into the back of that property, and now somehow be responsible for maintaining it. If it's grass, cutting the grass. There's an option on the table of offering to plant vegetation in that area, but it would still be on the other side of our fence, so I think there's an incentive that those neighbors would now take care of it. Another alternative is to put the fence at the no-kidding boundary and just reclaim that 10 feet of property that these people have been taken care of. That would, and the last opportunity that the group was kicking around was, did it make sense to have a retaining wall where the fence is, so that the properties, I don't know, our properties on the neighbors' yards remains flat and level as it is today, and actually perhaps raise that up a little so that our slope from our building to that fence isn't this 2-to-1 grade, which is pretty steep. You know, you can't, the back of that building where the gym is, you have to think about in the future bringing maintenance equipment in, for example. It's going to be tilted quite a bit. So 2-to-1, so, you know, so if I'm like 5 feet, it would be like from here and maybe to where Tom's chair is, would be that slope. So it's pretty steep. I mean, I'm not sure, I don't want to push a lawnmower up and down that. It's grass at this point. It's grass at this point. So by having a retaining wall and raising the retaining wall up a couple feet, you could actually level out our side also. So those are things being talked about. I mean, the numbers kicked around for the retaining wall option are in the area of 70 or 75,000. They have to look at it more closely. But we have to decide, and I think maybe get the neighbors' input on, we're going to impact your home, your lifestyle, your yard. What would you like to see? I think we should ask them what they would like to see.
Where's the architect?
I wish we had brought this up when Jim was here, because he has had this conversation with the construction people. They looked at the retaining wall initially and ruled that out. They see it more cost-effective and more environmentally friendly to grade the slope and use vegetation to, not necessarily grass, but vegetation in that area. I think we need to hear what they have to say and listen to why they came to that conclusion before we offer the neighbors an option, because I'm not sure $75,000, I think that was on the very low side. For a fence, I think they said 700 linear feet.
It's inexpensive.
It would be very expensive, and it would probably cost more than our soccer field. So I think we need to look where we put these resources, because we don't have unlimited funds.
So my intention as an elected member of this committee is to discuss this with the neighbors and get their input so that they're fully aware. I don't think anybody's told them yet what's going to happen to their backyards and what the alternative options are, and we can use that knowledge of making fully informed decisions as a school committee. Ms. Boland.
When the plan was first made, were we aware that we own 10 feet of their backyard?
Yes.
And did we ever, I mean, why was that never discussed?
Well, so, you know, if you look at the topographic lines,
Yeah.
they're very close together, which indicates a steep slope. We never caught on to how steep that slope was going to be. For example, in the 3D rendering walk-around, it was illustrated to be perfectly flat, so you didn't know at the back of the gym that was going to slope down at that rate.
Right,
So we just didn't catch it in
And
reviewing
now when we
those.
added extra feet, has it gone higher now?
Yeah, it's from the foundation.
But the height that it is now is not the finished height. That was my understanding. That is not the height it's going to be when all of the grading is done. So I think we need to hear, not just from what we're looking at, but what is it going to be like as a finished product?
Safe children.
Yeah, well, I've walked
Yeah.
that property line 3 times, and we ran shot lines, and we looked at it. I mean, if I lived in that property, I would not be happy that you just took 10 foot of my yard that I was using for a garden or a rock retaining wall or something like that, and now ask me to maintain that sloping area.
So,
Leave the land where it is.
yeah,
for the
I was
neighbors.
going to say, you don't want to take that land away from them.
But we're gonna make it unusable anyway by putting this slope in there. We're gonna put a 4-foot-high,
That's
8-foot...
not what the experts are saying,
Yes,
Pat.
it is.
No, it's not.
Joey, that's exactly what they're saying. A 2-to-1 slope, 8 to
That's
10
not
feet
what
into their
I
yard.
heard.
Okay, we'll have the meeting. So we'll schedule a
That's not
meeting
what I
to,
heard.
because it's exactly what it is.
And I just wanted to add that, the neighbors have been so good all along here.
Yeah.
We've not heard one complaint that I've heard of, so I think that being proactive to going to them first before they hear about this. on the
They've heard
TV.
about it already.
They have?
Yes.
Any questions on the slope? And the last item was the small breakout room. So I think we know that the lighting, the glazing in there is only for the outside wall to let light into the room, which creates a potential problem of nobody being able to see into that room and the activities going on in that room. Suppose if you assume there's always certified staff in that room, anytime there are kids in the room, that's okay, but my concern is maybe you're gonna use those rooms with parent volunteers, or maybe sometimes there's gonna be kids not quite so well supervised, and shouldn't there be some portal in the wall that the teachers on the other sides of the room can see what's going on in there? Not only for the child's safety, but even if I'm a parent in there and some child accuses me of doing something I didn't do, I'm in a bit of trouble myself. So from a safety and security perspective, some visibility by the teacher into that room would seem to make sense. Ms. Bullock?
This was a huge concern of mine when we were putting the plan together. I felt that windows should be put, that it's really important that there be access. So, I know it's 25,000, but I think we need to really think about it because for the reasons you just pointed out.
Yeah, I worry if you don't have that visibility that the room utilization is going to be low. We don't have that many certified specialists that are going to be at that school. And so if they're not, Bold or Vine or parent volunteers that can use that space because nobody can watch them, I'm not sure what you do.
Yeah, the only thing that I would suggest is that we do talk with the professional staff about this before we do anything and get their input about it.
Yeah, it would be good to get their input, especially with respect to how they envision those rooms
being used.
in that room.
If they're saying that it's only for professional staff, that's one thing, but if it should never, if they're saying we're going to let a kid go in there by themselves or something like that, or someone who hasn't been vetted by...
But, if it's only professional staff, then it's only going to be used less than half the time because we don't have that much additional professional staff. There's 13 of these rooms.
Right, and I don't know what the intention is, and I think that's something we should ask the staff.
Are there doors on
Yes.
these rooms? Okay, so instead of
Not that, if you're in your
Yeah.
classroom, you
Yeah,
cannot
no,
see
well-
into the window or the door.
Yeah, well,
Not unless you walk to the very end of the classroom.
no, then you can't
really
leave your
see 'em.
kids while,
So we can talk to staff about that, we can run some numbers.
Yeah,
Take a look at it.
I mean, it sounds all like a great idea if you have enough staff to be in there and use them all
Oh,
the
no,
time,
no,
and
no.
once you get
You
down
want
to
them
30%
used.
utilization.
Right, and it's kind of sighted in that if we can use it more often.
Right. Right.
Then we should plan for it.
Okay.
student teachers take the groups in,
So,
whatever, yeah.
Ms. Kelly,
Mr. Leary.
so could we talk about if they don't want them, to get rid of them before it gets going, or no?
Well, it's not in there, it's not in there now.
Oh, eliminating the rooms themselves.
Right, or have to.
Oh.
That was one of the
One of the things they wanted.
The teachers wanted the rooms. Quite honestly, I wasn't a fan, but the teachers wanted the rooms, and you
Yeah.
pay attention to your professional staff. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, just
that's-
focusing
yeah.
on assuming that there are 13
Windows.
extra staff members that are
Yeah,
in those
maybe we
rooms
should
all the
find out.
time to help them.
Before we start building.
Well,
No sense having empty rooms.
right, well, maybe you don't need, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe, let me check on
Yeah,
this,
we're
okay?
checking it.
Yeah, let me check on this, because again, The rooms were sort of a interesting thing that HMFH brought out, showed to the teachers, and the teachers seemed to like it. But not every room not all the rooms have
I
it.
think it's on, which wing has lower or the upper?
First through fourth grade, kindergarten does not.
Kindergarten, right, right, so it's 13 classrooms?
See if they just.
13 rooms, and it's a double, so it's probably 26 classes, yeah. So, okay.
Maybe there's 14 because of the rooms we added.
Yeah, okay. So we can take a look at that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think that is probably something in the next couple of months would have to get decided because they're going to start.
That would have to be done like, yeah, post haste. That would have to be done really quick.
Although those buildings are very modular, you know, that steel structure that they then sheetrock for that room. Sooner rather than later, but I hate to build them and put them in. Okay, that's all the discussion items unless anybody else wanted to talk about health school development plan. Expenditure and revenue reports, 8.1.
Joan did this today. She had to do a lot of it manually. Joan, you want some FaceTime here? All right. Not really.
When are you not going to have to do it manually? Not soon enough, right?
Well, it's September 11th.
Yeah.
Half the finance department was on vacation the last 2 weeks in August.
Yeah, that makes
So
sense.
they haven't posted August revenue yet, but I could get that from the RIPay website.
Yeah.
We're trying to do the, get the audit work papers prepared for
Yeah,
the
the
auditors
audit's
to come in at the
top
end of the
priority.
month and
Right.
answering busing questions.
How about the lunch program?
Oh, please.
No, it is.
At least it's standardized this year, right, Joan?
Yes.
Thank you.
So I guess my question, in the next, I don't know, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, do you think you'll be, able to get, so everything's in the accounting system and this is not a manual process? And
Yes, I do.
Yeah, good. Good.
That is my intent.
Okay, all right. No, that'll be a much better place to understand encumbrances, balances.
Yes.
things like that.
Which I thought was being accurately done, and they just made it up, so.
Concoctedly.
Seriously.
Ms. Bowen.
Yeah, question about the lunch program.
Yes.
So, do we know what day that magic day is in October that we have to have, that the federal government looks at yet to know whether, does their statistics and gives us our average for the year?
I'm not exactly sure which magic day you're talking about. I have something that's due October 1st, something October 15th. And I know the
It's one of those
verification
two magic
process
days.
is November 15th.
I mean, how are we doing, what is the process now at the elementary schools so that we can be assured that, that we're getting as many of these in as possible, A? And then my second question is, the cutoff date for, we're able to continue to give kids free lunch from last year up until...
I believe that is until...
20th day of school? Is it the 30th day of school? I can't remember. I think it might be...
I've heard the date of October 1st.
Okay, and then October 1st, everyone's cut off, from doing that. So how are we doing for collecting these?
Well, unfortunately, Doreen, who is doing the registrations and all the Aspen work, is also doing the interplay between the NutriKid system and Aspen. So, as far as I know, nothing has been entered yet, but it should be a very quick process with the new software. It's not like when the school secretaries had to calculate.
And just one other piece of information on that, but that every child that's not entered by the last day of the month, we can't go back and recollect for that child. So it's really important that at the end of every month that we make sure that every child has, we've gone back and if some child has entered the school system or if they've become qualified, it's as soon as you go into the next month, then we lose any days that they ate lunch that month. And it can add up to significant amount of money. And last year, we're keeping up on top of that.
For the 50% poverty rate, right? There's a lot of
Actually,
money.
we're up to 62.
60%.
I think district-wide poverty. Pretty sure we're up to over 50 at the high school now.
Last year we were 56.
I think in the last year.
Last year we were 56, according to InfoWorks poverty rate.
Well, and then that's the October number, so I'm referring back to by May, we did a better job if we had more kids in there. So I've got the May numbers in here. But that's why it's really important, because they start using those numbers, and yet at the end of last year, we had it moved up 4 or 5%, so.
Yeah. And as we all know, the only reason Newport gets any state aid at all is because we have youngsters who are eligible for free and reduced lunch. If it weren't for them, we get no state aid.
Right, and our state aid will be, every child that's free and reduced lunch is worth 1.4 as a multiplying factor as compared to a child that buys their lunch.
In the state aid formula.
In the state aid formula, so it's really important, every
Right.
single one of those kids.
Any other questions on expenditure and revenues?
Mr. Claire, I have a question, but if you could, for Ms. Tracy, for the benefit of the viewers, maybe at 9:30 at night, 2.5 hours into the program, they're not on TV anymore. So it might be
They've fallen asleep a long time ago.
Two people in the press that are here, you know. The pensions we pay into them, sometimes people don't realize we pay into pensions. You give them the percentage, what we paid last year, what we paid this year, for like round and 52203 line, you know. Oh, you don't need the line actually, but so what we paid last year, percentage of salaries, what we paid this year.
I had that information at last month's meeting, but I don't have it off the top of my head.
Okay.
I know the
I know it's
rate
more.
increased,
Yeah.
both for the MERS plan and the school teachers plan.
Right.
Yeah.
From,
Right. So just next month, we just have, so people can be
Okay.
aware of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Will you be back tomorrow?
Jerry, we're working next 8 hours.
Yeah, just stay here, yeah.
Don't call me at 8.
Okay, enrollment reports, so we have the district enrollment reports.
Right.
It's up from last year, right?
Yeah, well, again, we usually have the comparison. We weren't able to do it, but we're up from last year, and the last two items are out of district special ed, and then youngsters for whom we provide services, but they don't attend the public schools. In other words, youngsters who go to Clooney, who need resource room help, you know, they'll come in and they'll get the resource room help.
Do they have to come to us? Or do
They, my belief is they do, because you can't go and teach under the cross at. They used to. They used to back in the day. We used to hire trailers and put them actually on the Catholic school property and have the Title I and special ed teachers go in the trailers, and then the kids would walk off the church property and get the services. But back in the day, okay.
Ms. Leary.
Mr. If Mr. Dr. Brogy, if you could, for maybe next month or at least quarterly, can we get I know you break it down by elementary, by grade, but we do that same thing by middle school, what teachers have for a number of kids, because there are some real small class sizes at grade 8, 11, and 12. So I'd like to know when a teacher has the 5 classes they're teaching at the high school, how many kids are in each class, you know? So we have that broken down by...
I can run the whole thing for you.
middle school, too.
I don't have the time to do anything other than to run the schedule, and it's got the list of the teachers' names and what courses they're teaching and how many kids are in a class. I can do that.
Yeah, because I'm just curious, but the class size being so small, what's the class size?
Depending on what the class is.
You know, and they just show the numbers here. In elementary, it tells you the number of teachers and the number of kids per class. You know, where you don't know that with, you know, the high school or the middle school.
But the high school is different.
Yeah, it's just,
it depends on the selection of the class.
if it's an AP, it should be small.
You're not going to
If it's
have
special, it should be
25 kids
small.
in every class
No.
in high school.
No, but I mean, I like to see what the schedule of teacher has, if they have 10 or 12 kids in the class.
And then what their total is for the day.
We can get that.
It is encouraging to see 9th and 10th grade at 186, 187 students, and hopefully we keep them into graduation. That'll be a
That'd be great. Yep.
Certainly enrollment at the high school is headed in the right direction. We were predicting getting down to 500 at some point in the future. And that
Do you
happened.
remember? Do you remember the year where we worked really hard to make sure it didn't get under 100 graduating.
Yeah.
We were really close because we were afraid it would be headlines, Rogers class less than 100, but that never happened, and now it's trending upwards, so.
Yeah.
And
Holler if it's too many.
we have no damage reports?
No, not to my knowledge. My assistant superintendent in the back, do we have any damage reports? Okay, not this one. Wait till, yeah, we had some graffiti, but that happened yesterday, so.
Oh, by the way, Mr.
Fagan.
How quickly we forget, he's not gone yet. Holy heavens. Holy heavens.
Wow.
It's late, it's late. The boulders look pretty good. We have any more? Okay. Are they close enough together that cars can't come between them? Okay. Okay.
They are much nicer.
Yeah.
Last thing, superintendent's update.
I just want to share this with all my friends and neighbors who wonder why I don't have the summer off. Summer is a busy time for the central office staff getting prepared for the coming school year. So
You didn't do any cookouts for the staff, you know, like a...
I did at the end of the year for the administrators.
No,
Right?
I mean, during the summer. During the summer.
But at the end-
Put a grill out there.
Oh, here! Oh, I thought you meant Mary having them over to the house again.
No, I mean the worker bees.
Motion to receive the superintendent's
Yeah.
update as
So moved.
presented. So moved, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Was it, Becky, you made the motion?
Sanders second.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Are there any requests for special meetings? I guess we'll
You got the
schedule
one,
We took care
the
of that.
27th.
that. Right. Okay, motion to adjourn,
So moved.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.